Hey guys, Tarke here, and we're starting a rather scuffed Baeclast, and we'll be talking all about Beastcrafting and all of that good. In the background, we have Derrok doing some beautiful hideout stuff, so make sure you check him out. And we are joined by Grimro, Octavian, Raiz, and Uber. What has everyone been up to? What leagues are you playing, so people know what league is you're currently sustaining alks in? Grim, what about you?
I've been playing Windripper in softcore bestiary, basically just making money, seeing how much I can min-max the beast crafting, like recipe stuff. It's been pretty fun. So, yeah.
Wait, you're trying to gain currency from it?
Well, yeah, of course. Like, what else are you gonna do?
Like,
Hey, it's been working. It's been working.
yeah?
Apparently, what you do is you complain on Reddit.
Exactly.
Playing
in
on
the meta.
Then you get it done.
No,
Wait.
the beasts are worth so much currency. Like, I've made like three and a half thousand chaos of selling them before I crashed the price by making a YouTube video.
Yeah.
But
There's
you know,
Yeah,
There's-
I saw your YouTube video and I like look at the comments and they're like, well, all these beast crafting prices are like 3 to 5 chaos now, so this video is like completely irrelevant.
There are a few
it's-
recipes that are just like really strong though, so and
Yeah.
the beasts are kind of rare, so they might hold value. But yeah, some
like
of the ones
Harbinger
that
orbs.
some of the ones that people just were kind of sleeping on and not realizing were worth something, those have crashed by like 50%.
yeah.
So good
But
job, Grimro.
I think what a lot of it is though is that after people watched the video, they realized they had all these beasts, and then they all listed them at once, and that flooded the market. And supply remained the same, but sorry, demand remained the same, but supply went way off the charts. So once it all gets absorbed into the economy, then we'll see the prices creep back up again.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was one thing which I did find funny, because I was talking to Grim about it before he published his video, and he was like, I don't get why people aren't talking about how they're making currency with this. I'm like, because they want to keep making currency with this? That might be maybe why people aren't saying, hey, if I capture this one beast, it's worth like 100 chaos or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so, Octavian, you've also been doing a lot of that as well, haven't you? What's been like your main findings of making muns?
I've been a little eclectic this league, but yeah, I've been doing some beast farming. I've been trying to figure out exactly which maps will spawn them most often. The best ones that I've found have been Reef and Leyline, actually. There's a handful of others, but Leyline has been like my biggest moneymaker. You can buy them cheap as dirt. It's a T3 map, and then run them super fast on like an MF build or something, get decent currency drops, and then every time you get a Krashik Presence Waste Lurcher, it's worth a lot of money. And they'll spawn maybe one every dozen maps or something, and I was selling them for 80, 90 chaos each.
Damn.
Not anymore. They're
No,
30
not
chaos
any-
now.
not anymore. Not anymore. It was nice while it lasted though.
Still a lot more than I thought. Like, I would have
Yeah.
thought that by now the community would have kind of caught up with all this stuff, because obviously I haven't really been following it too much. SSF, by the way. But it seems like even a month into the league, this stuff is changing quite a bit still.
People
yeah.
they didn't give it any credit. And the mechanic
Yeah.
is so different than previous ones, they didn't really know how to adapt to it quickly. And I mean, I'm not saying I was way ahead of the curve. I've been doing this for like 4 or 5 days now, maybe a week. But apparently that was enough ahead of the curve to make some good money.
I just want to add, like, although the prices have crashed and stuff like that, most of the red beasts are worth like 5 to 6 chaos, and a lot of the rare beasts, like the Krakic sea sirens, they're still worth 5 chaos. So you can still farm up like hundreds of chaos, like just from the beasts in your maps, like that you wouldn't be getting otherwise. So, I mean, you know, it's pretty good.
Can you just imagine like all the dudes that have been doing this from the very well? I guess people could farm up beasts kind of, but they couldn't sell them until somewhat recently, right? When did they release the trading stuff?
It's like a week into the league, right?
Yeah.
About a week,
Yeah.
week and a half, I think.
So do you still think that there could have been people who were making like good currency before this, like before?
I mean,
the
well,
trade change?
It's pretty easy. It was pretty easy to reverse engineer which one would be like worth something, because you just look at the good recipes, like imprint a magic item, and you try and figure out which beasts are rarest, and then those are the ones worth something. So if someone made that realization before trading started and held on to all theirs that they had lying around, they could have made a lot of money. Yeah.
for softcore at least, I don't think it works quite like that because the people who are using these recipes are predominantly the people in the ivory towers who have thousands of exalts. They're crafting the mirror tier items for the server, and these are the guys using the imprint recipe. Like people like me and anyone here, we're not using it, right? Like they're the people paying like out the ears for the all of the imprint recipe stuff, and a lot of the add a suffix, remove a prefix stuff. Like they're the ones buying it. So they don't actually have that currency until like 2 or 3 weeks into the league anyway. So I don't know if it would have been as good early on.
One thing which I do find kind of interesting about it though is like when they first announced Beast Room, we still like trying to work out how exactly it worked. And this whole thing came of like, how is netting going to work in groups? Won't you be in the issue where if you have this really valuable beast, then you have like a group of 6 people, you've just like duped an item 6 times. And then Grim, you were telling me that you've predominantly just been doing like 6-player parties, so when you do find a beast, you just like instantly make like 300 chaos or something. So how exactly does that work?
So basically, the map you do it in, ever since the prices crashed, is Reef, and you get 6 people in there, and there's a beast in there, which is the Krakic level 80 octopus, and it's the only expensive reagent for the Harbinger Orb recipe. So at the moment on softcore, 1 Harbinger Orb is 25 chaos. So when you net an octopus, basically you make 125 chaos, and all 6 people will net the octopus at once, and you basically make 500 chaos just in like 1 octopus. And they spawn, the octopuses spawn every like 2 or 3 maps, and the Krakic presence is like 1 in 6. So yeah, you can make a lot of money, and the maps are only 15 chaos each. So you know, if you're trying to make a few thousand chaos with 6 people, then you can do it pretty easily.
Is the Carrion Queens still not have like any are those still
No, they
not...
crashed even harder since we talked. They're about 11
Seriously?
chaos each now.
They're
Yeah,
even harder
really,
to
really cheap.
farm. Yeah,
Yeah,
Reef is
they're
more
harder to
reliable than
farm.
Ramparts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure. That might be one that's just crashed way too hard because of supply. Like I think it'll probably go back up. So I guess if you want to speculate on that, but yeah, it's really low right now. You can make the Harbinger Orb just with the octopus, really, basically.
I guess it's just because it's level 70, but like it's the most unreliable to farm. I ran like 25, 30 ramparts, and I've seen like 2 yellow Carrion Queens in that map, in total, just yellow, not even like the right mod.
I think the reason why you'll find it's cheaper is because the majority of the player base right now is running yellow and white maps because people like QDog and everyone is basically saying that's the way forward, and no one's running the higher tier maps like tier 13s plus, which is like the cutoff point for level 80, which is the octopus. So there's tons of people getting these carrion queens randomly in maps, and no one's getting the octopuses because no one's running red maps really anymore because it's just not really worth it.
Oh yeah, I forgot the prophecy also works for Carrion Queens. Hungering Swarm. They can spawn as B-Stream rares.
Yeah, and there's some tile sets that are city-based tile sets and that sort of thing that won't have any natural beasts, so you can try and proc the prophecy in there, and then you only have the insects for beasts. But even doing that, I haven't had good luck in getting the infested earth ones. And now that they've crashed in price, I don't know, it's just not really worth it.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's not a horrible prophecy to run. It's basically adding a sextant to your map. You know, it's a bunch of packs.
I mean, there were people that bought like full tabs of like Plague of Frogs on their Headhunter farm, and they would just like try to proc at every single like burial chamber or spider forest they ran, just to like add extra mobs to the map. I remember the one time Ayla streamed on the Garena server. He had like a full tab of just Plague of Frogs, and he was just throwing them on every single spider forest map that he could.
It's a little off topic from today's topic, but I think prophecies are just so underrated at the moment. Like, any Tempest prophecy is 20 quantity. Any of the Hungering Swarm or the Soil Worms and Blood, Plague of Frogs, Rats, those are basically a sextant. People go bonkers for sextants, and then they don't bother using good prophecies, and I don't understand why.
Because when you get the 20 quality prophecy, you have to spend 15 seconds finding a piece of gear in your stash and then getting something quality yet.
It's basically GGG has taken this power that the prophecies could potentially give your maps for sustain and currency and stuff, and just put it behind a barrier of annoyance. Which is the same thing.
The big
about
thing
trading
with prophecy, because it's definitely something that I've engaged a lot with this league now that I've gone SSF, and I've actually said a few times like, oh shit, I'm actually like low-key enjoying prophecy, something's wrong. It's a mechanic which, if you're not really like planning it and you're just like engaging with it randomly, is really fucking frustrating. And also, it's one of those things that, you know, it's not like you see Cute Dog or Mathel every stream, better start up and do my prophecy stuff. So it's something which is kind of annoying. You do need to plan around it a little bit, and then you haven't got like one particular streamer who's like really pushing, oh, prophecy is amazing, prophecy amazing. It's kind of a bit like Uber Lab in a way. People know that you can make quite a lot of money with prophecy at the start of League, but people just go, oh, I don't like that, so I'm not going to engage with it. And I feel like in that sense, it's very similar to Uber Lab of like, oh yeah, if you do Uber Lab, it's currency, but yeah, I don't like that. It's not the core game, so fuck it, you know. I don't know.
It's a barrier of entry of putting in a bit of time and, I don't know, paperwork, basically.
Yeah, but it's mostly because it's unpopular, right? Because like even if you were to like comparing it to Sextants, if you want pack size for maps, I mean, how many really at a time can you buy, right? For like a prophecy, it's like you're gonna buy. It's kind of like essences. You're gonna buy one from one guy, another one from another guy. You can't really buy them in bulk. But if it was more popular and people were aware that getting them could potentially earn you like decent currency, then it's gonna be easier, right? But nobody really put in the effort and all this time to actually delve into it. So. Hey, maybe it's gonna be like Beastcrafting. Eventually, it's gonna catch up, and then there you go, new Sextants.
Well, I mean, with Beastcrafting is one of the good things for it because you can get like that's a deep one's presence is what you need for 5 prophecies, and because you can't like really sustain silver coins in SSF ever, because well, obviously you can't buy the silver coins. The Beastcrafting is what enabled like SSF to easily farm prophecies. That's why like people were like, wow, Bopped Moose, who was first to kill Uber Elder on SSF, they were like, holy crap, how did he get 2 Calm's Ways in SSF? He must have been super lucky. And it's like, no, he just farmed Deep One's presence and kept doing prophecy stuff.
Yeah, I've had 3 Belly of the Beast just from prophecies this week, and I've just been like half engaging with it, and it's like, this might be a good mechanic if only this had been in the game for a while. That's like, it's stuff like that, which is why I think that Bestiary does deserve some kind of place. But to backtrack massively to get back onto the whole Beastcrafting thing, so what are like the main recipes that people should be aware of, which are like, oh, this is what makes this a good system, other than here's a Quicksilver of Adrenaline?
Well, there's a lot of things that you can use Beastcrafting for. Like, obviously the biggest one right now is because Harbinger Zonamod doesn't actually drop Harbinger orbs, they're a myth. Don't believe it. Is the Harbinger orb recipe where we just talked about this, where you need an octopus that's Crichic Presence, and you can get that generally in Reef Map. There's two fairly common mods. The Crichic Presence octopus is what unlocks the recipe, and then the rest are just level 70 mobs. The rarest one being Carrion Queen with Infested Earth.
We finished, dude?
I think I've gotten, let's see, I think I've gotten 20 or 25 Harbinger orbs so far, and I've got 5 beachheads just sitting in my stash right now for when I eventually run out of maps trying to spawn T15 Elder.
That's pretty impressive for Soul Self-Found. Nice.
Yeah.
One other recipe that's I've been seeing a lot of use from is the add a mod to a rare map recipe. I have a friend who's on the Haunted Mansion bandwagon and trying to make the perfect Haunted Mansion, and I actually helped him make that today. It's he's going to be mirroring it a bunch to run it with the mirror map recipe as well, and it costed around 300-400 chaos to make the map, in just, getting a bunch of map bases, rolling them up, adding mods until we got Sea Witches beyond. I think it has Bloodlines and just some good pack size mods. And he's gonna double beyond Sea Witch just all day, every day, run literally only the same map. We've boiled down the meta to only running a single map at this point. And it costs about 40 chaos to mirror the map, but he makes back way more than that just selling all his map drops and selling all his Alex and selling all his chisels, because he never has to use them again because he only just keeps running the same map and mirroring it.
Is it an Elder shaped haunted, or is it an Elder Haunted Mansion? Okay. Good.
Elder T16. No, we didn't do this with a T10 Haunted Mansion. Didn't spend like 1,000 chaos mirroring and crafting the map. I actually want to try a different project where I'm going to be trying to make a Zana perfect map, because the Zana's map mod gives 20 pack size by itself. So you can theoretically get a 50% pack size Sea Witch Double Beyond Bloodline map and run only that. And I want to do it on Underground Sea and have literal wall-to-wall monsters. Like, I can't see the ground. I want to not know where the ground is from all the corpses.
So what you're saying is you want to crash your game.
Exactly, yes, repeatedly.
How does he make 40k on some map? Like, that sounds damn optimistic. Holy
That-
crap.
He can sell,
That's
he
what I
can
was
sell his
thinking.
map drops for about 35C each.
Yeah, he just
never
mirrors
has
the
to
map.
use them because he just
Right.
mirrors the map.
Yeah.
All of the chisels, alks, and maps that he gets, he can sell because he never has to alk, chisel, or map or roll
I mean,
maps.
I
He
sell all
never
my
has to
chisels
map.
and all that stuff as well, because I don't chisel my maps right now because of the prices. And I don't make 40k on some map.
He,
I mean,
he's
it
been
depends
doing it.
how much the map sells for itself.
About 35C for any of his maps, and he'll get like 5-6 maps back per map that he runs because of how many mobs are in there.
Wait, 35C. What do you mean? No,
For an
how much
Elder
is
Haunted Mansion.
it's 35 chaos for an Elder Haunted Mansion?
That's the numbers he's giving me. I've not been running it.
That's
I mean,
that sounds crazy to me.
yeah, they're listed for that, but I don't think that anyone's buying them for that much.
Oh,
He's been
maybe.
selling them.
I mean, you
Well,
don't have
I
to.
could be
You don't
wrong.
have to shape it yourself, right? You can just like get it. So I guess in a way that like skips the whole getting the
Yeah,
16 orb.
They've come down a bit, but they're 30 at the moment. The recipes come down as well, though, thanks to you, Grimro. So the recipe costs around 35 to do at the moment.
Yeah, I think the split recipe is basically the one that. Wait, not the. You can split it as well, right? The map.
Yeah, he's not
can.
been doing the split though. He doesn't want to split it. He wants to keep all the mods together.
Right.
Yeah, that's how I got most
Um,
of my T16s. I
and
still
he's,
split all my splits.
The other thing he's been doing is he's been using the Magic Find Party setup that I did last league, which is just ridiculous for making currency. Party quantity actually multiplies against player quantity. This would be a huge tangent. I don't want to go into it, but
No, go into it. Go into it.
go into okay. So, in the same way that you have increased damage and more multipliers to damage for doing damage, in terms of quantity, you have your player quant and party quant, and your base value will get multiplied by your player quant, and then as a more multi, after that first multiplication happens, you'll have party quant applied. And so you'll get absolutely ridiculous quantity numbers if you have a full party, up to 250% more currency dropping. And so if you can run the map with a full party, which with some very souped up supports, he's been able to run T16 maps full party and MF Windripper gear, you can make obscene amounts of currency. Like last league, I did this with a party and we made a mirror's worth of currency in 16 hours. In the last few days of the league, when mirrors were 250 exalts.
Yeah, I mean, I do a similar thing to you. Like at the start of the league, I was running leech groups, so people wanted to level up in my maps.
Yeah.
So I just brought 6-man groups, and yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. When you said like the 45 chaos map or whatever you said, I thought you were talking about solo. I was like, what the hell?
No.
It's
He's
six-man groups,
doing party shenanigans.
Yeah.
Party play is silly at the moment, and I think a lot of people are not really aware of how strong it is.
I mean, even solo,
think
if
they're
you can sell the map for 35 chaos and it costs 40 to run it, I mean, that's sustainable easily. I mean, you're gonna be dropping multiple of these haunted mansions anyway, probably most like, right? Like per map.
Yeah, no, he's putting like bloodlines or harbinger on every map. Still experimenting with that and sextants and prophecies and all the investment you can squeeze into a map, basically.
God, that sounds like such a ridiculous number to me. Because I knew about that, right? And like whenever I would always go on this like 30-minute rant whenever people were like, I wish party play was stronger in Path of Exile. I only ever see streamers play solo, and I'm just like, dude, please, don't say
Stronger?
and then you bring out a number like fucking getting a mirror in 16 hours.
We ran Poor Joys and sustained Poor Joys.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. We ran Poor Joys and it dropped a Poor Joys 7 maps in a row. That's how high our rarity and quantity was. We were sustaining Poor Joys asylums. We were easily over sustaining by the literal thousands chisels and sextants and alks and everything last league. It's absurd.
At
I
least
mean,
it
yeah, I
doesn't,
can
like,
agree.
Yeah.
No, you go. Sorry. No, you go.
At least it doesn't like improved map drops other than like the unique ones, I guess.
Yeah, uniques aren't technically on the map table; they're on the item table. So
Yeah,
I had thousands of unique maps.
yeah.
I mean, I can kind of agree with what Octavian is saying. Like, most leagues I run with a full group, and what people don't understand about group play is that not only are you getting more loot, you're also going way faster than any other group can go. Because as a carry, like I played the carry, the attacking character, I don't have to loot anything. All the supports loot everything. They open all the chests on the map. They loot all the chests and stuff like that. So everything is getting opened, and chests drop maps, which you were just talking about then, Uber. So we are getting more maps than you. And because you're running the group like with the aura bots and the movement speed champion and the cursor and stuff, nothing can kill you, and you move way faster than any other like single player moves.
Okay, can you take that concept and can you explain it to my friend Kane? Because whenever I play with him, he always plays support and he was always like, hey Tarke, I can't be fucked to pick this up, so you just put it on free for all and you can pick up all the loot. I'm like, no, that's not how it works. You're the support, you're meant to like, he's like, nah, fuck it, that's aggro. So you see me playing KB stopping to pick up like fucking portal scrolls. Meanwhile, he's like, dude, hurry up, man, I'm like 10 screens away. It's like, for fuck's sake.
You see, you've done the wrong thing and you've called him a support. The correct terminology is bitch boys.
Sorry,
That
sorry.
bitch boy, he knows what's up. I agree.
I can only remember the leagues where people would play Valspark and then they'd have full parties that would just run behind and pick up items and do all the trading and selling. And then they'd hit 100, yay!
The support would hit 100, yeah. And you'd be running like 3 different supports for like a single fucking carry. That would be funny too. People would like run Necromancer, Guardian, and Champion. It's just like, dude, come on.
Even before, like, well, I guess, like, I remember it being a thing in Prophecy League where people would just like run gorges with Valspark and like, like 3 people would be behind just picking up things.
Yeah, but that was also the thing, right? That if you wanted experience eventually, like the builds grew to be so OP that the supports couldn't like keep up anymore. So if you had like a really good Vol Sparker, then a support would be slowing you down if you didn't care about currency.
Yeah.
That's so ridiculous. I remember when they nerfed Necromancer, and you saw all these Reddit threads of people going, I can't believe they nerfed Necromancer, my build diversity. And it's just like, dude, have you seen a Necro support? Like, holy crap. It was a really ridiculous time, but supports are still really powerful right now, especially if you include all the MFing and all that sort of stuff.
I think they're actually more powerful than they've pretty much ever been because you got the spider chest piece and the bird chest piece. The bird chest piece is just ridiculous. It gives you 20% chance to deal double damage for the whole team, and it gives the whole team 20% movement speed. It cycles around, but still, that's just disgusting, right? It's so silly.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if that's stronger than the old Necro support. That shit was pretty much like unlimited
You put that on
power.
a champion though, like you have the Necro support by itself, then you have the cursor with the spider, and then you have the champion with the bird, and then you got the full team.
And then you have the Deadeye carry who's just casually giving everyone tailwind.
Yeah.
And then you have the random raider carry who doesn't get invited into the group because he's not a fucking Deadeye. But so anyway, out of interest, so Raiz, how have you been incorporating Beastcrafting into your SSF experience? Please teach us.
Not much lately, I'll be honest. At the start of the league, I like tried it out with many different things, but then it eventually just became one of those can't be fucked type of things. Because the thing from, I don't know if that was last Baeclast, if we talked about that. I think so. There was like a whole thing with like just Ventura about to hit 100, and everybody was like, we hope he's gonna die, but then nobody really believed it. Yeah, he killed himself to reflect. So like, there was a full like SSF race reset, which was probably the most fun I've ever had in PoE ever. Because everybody just rerolled and tried to get to 100. So when you were doing that, yeah, since that's what I've been doing until very recently, I haven't touched Beastcrafting at all. I mean, like, not at all. I mean, some things I've done with, like, maps and some prophecy, and, I ended up four-linking my chest, so I did, like, random currency, and I got 10 fusings, and I still didn't 5-link my chest piece. Like, that sort of stuff, but nothing really major that I can think of that you can do for SSF that's, like, particularly profitable, or you can, like, build around. But maybe others have suggestions, like something that, let's say you want to start a league, but like you need this one thing to make a build viable in a way for SSF. Can you guys think of anything that would allow you to do that?
For SSF, nah. But I mean, I can give you lots of examples of good league starting stuff with Bestiary in a trade league, but that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, I got quite a few things from Beastcrafting. I mean, I got my Wind Ripper from Beastcrafting. I'd have to like open up my stash and like look at all my loot because I've got like a full stash of just random uniques and.
Yeah, I mean the unique items, I guess. I mean, I remember when I needed bones, I was like trying to find all the apes for the recipe to just craft unique boots. I ended up finding like 3 of them, even though I attempted to farm it in like Northern Forest for like an hour straight. I found like 3 of them by the time I was 95. Obviously, never got my bones from them either. It was like, it wasn't that great to build around. It's still such a big chance that you're just gonna get something else. Really
Yeah, the red
deal with
beasts.
I think.
Yeah, the red beasts, you can't really like target farm them too much because
Yeah.
they just appear anywhere. So
You can't
Right.
target farm them at all. They're completely random.
yeah,
Mm.
well, kind of, because if you want to get rid of like feral even being able to spawn, which why would you want to do that? You can just like not run anything over T13, but like,
Yeah.
why would you want to do that? Because the chest, the cat chest is like insane.
Well, yeah, it's weighted though. You're not going to get the cat chest, let's be honest.
I
mean,
don't know if you're
I've
aware,
gotten
but we
3.
have the go live button. We have streamers. We always get chest first try. You know.
Yikes.
I got the crab chest first
Um,
try and was like, Ez, let's go.
What the hell?
Uber's
3
pretty
chest
good with
pieces.
chests.
Are you kidding
I'm.
me?
I have 3 out of 4 feral pieces. Guess which one I'm missing?
The boots.
No, the chest.
Damn it.
Oh, I thought you had 3 chests. I was like,
Yeah.
who is this guy? Are you kidding me?
Also, spider. I have 4 pieces. Guess which one I'm missing?
Wait, aren't there only 4 pieces?
I have 4. Yeah, there's 4 different pieces, but 2 of
Oh,
them are
okay.
the same.
Okay.
I'm missing the chest on that one too.
Yeah, just to bounce back to your other topic, Tarke, because I know a lot of people watching are probably like, Beastcrafting sucks ass. So I wanted to add a few recipes to the list, you know. I think the main one is the Harbinger Rob one. When you talk about Beastcrafting, I think the problem with the league is that there's actually no good recipes that the average player wants to use, right? Like, who the hell wants to imprint an item? Not me. Like, I'll leave that to the big boys. But the one recipe I do think that's super accessible and pretty, you know, good to use is the Horizon Orb recipe. It's so easy to do, and that really helps out a lot of players, you know, who are just coming into the league. You can sell them, or you can re-roll your maps, you know, do whatever.
Yeah, to jump off
Oh, yeah.
that, like, I feel like GGG needed to go a little bit further out on a limb with the recipes. There's so many recipes for just random junk that no one's ever going to really care about. Well, I mean, Raiz and Uber have said that they're not even all that useful in solo self-found. Like, how many times have you made a rare chest piece with a strength roll? Or a rare pair of gloves with an int roll? Or something?
I did make some
Actually-
amulets with a life roll. All of them were useless though.
I'll have
I'm-
you know that I spent a good hour beastcrafting some shaper gloves, and those shaper gloves are still in my stash, and I have no alterations left. So beastcrafting was very helpful, very helpful.
I've actually beastcrafted a few good rares. I've been actually using it quite a bit more recently to try and reroll some rares, cause like, I don't have like any essences to reroll it, and obviously you can't. There's no essence that puts life on a piece of jewelry, so.
That's true. Now they've made it so you can choose the base to some degree. It is a bit better, and I think that was a
Yeah.
step in the right direction. But I really just want a lot more interesting recipes. Like, if you look at essence, a lot of the corruptible essences, like horror and insanity and that sort of thing, they have these weird, crazy as fuck, like alternate uses for summoning permanent SRS or whatever that one's called, or the little tiny fiery explosion. I don't even know what they're called because you never see them actually used, but people have built around them. The Path of Exile is a game with people who want to find those tiny little strange corners and
Yeah, but
inhabit them.
That was such a eventuality, you know. It's kind of like what we're having now, where people are catching up with the recipes. Like that was the same thing at the start, because like when you look at an essence, it's just like a million different things. Except bestiary is like that times 10. Like when you actually capture the beast, it was the most annoying thing ever because you were having like 50 different pop-ups of new recipe discovered, and you're just like clear screen, and then eventually it just goes away. But you don't actually read what the fuck you're getting, right? And so this is the same thing. If you look at your bestiary recipes, and there's like 60 absolutely useless ones, but then one useful one, then you're never even gonna get to the useful one through all the useless ones, right? If you're like if you just don't care about it. And I feel like this was the same case with essences, that eventually people really started reading them, and then it kind of caught up and people started building around it. And I think bestiary is probably going to be the same, especially now that apparently people know that there's some money involved with it. You know, that's really the driving force behind everything every time. If there's
True,
currency
but-
to be had, then yeah.
A lot of the things that bestiary does aren't really unique to bestiary, though.
Yeah.
Unlike with essence, where there's there's essences that had effects and behaviors that hadn't been in the game before. We've had eternal orbs before, and we've had harbinger orbs before. We've had horizons. We've had essences before, which behave a lot like a lot of beastcrafts. I want something new that beastcrafts bring to the table that other things haven't. I guess the aspects are those to some degree, but like that's literally 4 crafts that do new things. I actually can't think of any others. Well, no, add a prefix, remove a suffix, add a suffix, remove a prefix. That's sort of a advanced annulment orb / exalt. That's new.
This is
Okay,
a test.
I actually just remembered what there is actually a few things you can do with this, and it involves meta mastercraft mods. So like, if you want, like, if you get an item with like pretty good suffixes but like god awful prefixes, but it has an open prefix, you can actually like save the suffixes, and then like if you don't want to like waste more exalts, what you can do is you can actually throw that in with the suffixes can't be changed, and then you can like re-roll the item and save the suffixes, but like guarantee a certain prefix roll with the beastcrafting.
That's the kind of cool shit I want to see more of.
Yeah.
But I think we're missing the point a little bit here, right? I think the reason people hate the league, and like 99% of the people, is because this is all about meta crafting and slamming with exalts and all this kind of stuff. Like, no one even like uses exalts apart from people who play like 6 hours a day, right? Like, who on earth has that much currency who plays casually? Like, if they get an exalt, they're gonna buy some gear with it, right? And beast crafting offers them nothing. Like, they're not gonna do the rare crafting, they're not gonna be doing the meta crafting, and chances are they're not gonna craft a 6 link anyway, and their prices suck anyway, so they can't even sell it. So like, what is there for them to even use to craft? Like, they have no reason to interact with the system apart from playing the lottery with some unique items, and that's not even fun. So I think,
well, if you approach it that way, then you might as well say that these people who are like more casual and whatnot, I mean, they wouldn't necessarily be sitting on Reddit or reading the forums or anything like that. They'd be just playing the game, right? And those people obviously would never be vocal because they don't engage with the rest of the community. But if they're just playing and they're using these recipes, then maybe it is useful. And I mean, I'm sure GGG is in a way keeping track of this. They must be, right? Like, how much does the average player actually use like a random rare recipe? It must be more than we hear about it.
I think that one thing that is really missing, because they did show their stats, and some people on Reddit worked out that from the stats it implied that people were doing like 11 crafts or something. But I think one thing that was a really missed opportunity is when they had the leveling section, having something like create an item level 55 link. I was saying that's the kind of recipe which really doesn't have that much power, but for a start of league thing is huge. And like, if you look at it now, being able to make an item level 50 like evasion 5 link, who cares? But for someone completely new or someone who hasn't got a tabular yet, that's actually like a pretty big deal, and having more recipes like that to like hook people into the system, or like I know that Grim said maybe having like a Chaos Orb recipe in Bestiary, having stuff like that giving you easy access to not that powerful but very helpful things to then get people engaging with it, and then you can have the crazy meta crafting style stuff later on. I don't know.
I think impressive is the more necessary word. Like something that somebody who's not necessarily new has played for a while, but even if he is like kind of new, that he can look at like a 5 link and just go, wow, like I could get this now, even though in reality it's not really that useful. But if they see it as impressive, then they obviously regard the system in a lot better way than just like rare amulet didn't give me shit, this is garbage.
I think the item that really should have been in there, and like the most coveted item of all Reddit and all of the new players, is the Exalted Orb. I think there should have been a recipe for them to chase, which was the Exalted recipe.
Yeah,
I
maybe.
thought that was
yeah.
the Alcorb.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah. Oh.
it's not exclusive though. Like GGG has a lot of room to work here. They have so many beast base types. They could have added all of these recipes. You know, there can be recipes that cater to chasing for high tier stuff. There can be recipes that give you a 5 link in the first 2 days of the league. Like these are all things that can be in the mechanic.
Well, that's the
Yeah.
beauty of this system. Like, even if you were to implement a recipe that gives you an Exalted Orb and somebody looks at it and he's really impressed with it, wow, this is like the first time we can sort of deterministically get an Exalted Orb. They can just balance it out by having like the rarity of the beasts appear, right? Like, you can get really
Exactly.
lucky the same way you get an Exalted Orb, but they can just balance it out. So even if it's there available, you don't necessarily have to crash it with like being this, super farmable thing, right? So I think
Yeah,
more
I
of
mean,
that would be cool.
exactly. That's exactly right, right? It's like there just needs to be something which is actually like people want to like craft, and they kind of achieve that with Harbinger Obs and stuff. But I think the ceiling's a little bit high for Harbinger Obs. Like a lot of people don't even get to red maps, which are new, right? Like they're not engaging with that recipe.
Unless you're like looking up the recipe outside of the game, you may not even know it exists.
Yeah,
A large
exactly. Like, you
portion of the
can't
player
even
base.
see what you can craft
Which
before you
I-
capture the beast. Yeah.
I think that was a bit of a mistake because they could have had the whole feeling of trying to hunt down that new mythic beast. You know, the eye level 80 plus Krashik octopus I'm trying to capture will give me access to the Harbinger recipe instead of
Yeah.
just happening to come across one.
I
There you
think
go.
honestly, what they should have done is all recipes should have been unlocked, and a part of the bestiary should have been where you can find the beast as well, like naturally, because that would give people an incentive to go out and try those maps and farm it and stuff like that. You shouldn't have to go to a third-party website or a spreadsheet or something just to find out how to even start to unlock the recipe to farm it.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
No
confusing.
game should require a wiki. No game
Mm,
should
I-
require a
yeah.
wiki.
Yeah,
I
it's kind of
mean,
nature of PoE.
It is, and I don't
It's
blame.
unfortunate.
I'm not saying that we'll ever get there, but
Yeah.
that's the gold standard I think we should be shooting for.
I
You know,
think
in
so,
terms
too.
of readability.
I think
Yeah, I
that's
just
the
want to
thing
add.
that's holding back PoE the most in general. I think like a
Yeah.
no in-game XYZ and all this sort of stuff. Like, I think it's holding back the game a lot.
Yeah, 100%. But I do want to add, sorry, that I think what this league did really well is that it's got a lot of depth. But like someone like me, like I'll put the league down. Like Abyss was terrible for me. I didn't like Abyss because it was just more of the same, right? Just kill the monsters, you get a boss, cool. There's your light poacher, right? But this has like some stuff you need to figure out and stuff like that. I think that's really interesting, and I think Octavian, you can agree with that as well. Like if there's nothing there to keep you hooked and kind of keep digging, then that's a bit boring. But they have to balance that out with it being accessible as well, right?
Yeah, but like all of the things can be discoverable through the game. I'm not saying the game should just hand you everything on a silver platter, but it should lead you down a path to finding it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
like
exactly.
It's
yeah.
like there
also
should.
it's like double-sided too, right? Because you don't necessarily want to flood people with information, and if you have like all these recipes from the get-go and you just open it and just throw a million recipes in your face, it's like, what the fuck is this, right? How am I supposed to like even look for the thing that I just got through the recipe? And like another thing
Right.
is too that like with the beast, like even if you were to, okay, let's say there is a recipe for an exalted orb, I feel like there's, for me at least, there is very little indication because like I would get the recipe, I wouldn't remember what it would be because it would pop up amongst like a million other recipes, but I would imagine for this it would be a little bit better. But then even if I do see the beast or even if I capture the beast, most of the time, unless I've done the recipe before, I'm not aware that that's actually giving me the exalted orb, you know? Like I wouldn't really see it until I was in the bestiary and I'm like, oh, I found a thing that gives me an exalted orb. And this would be the same thing for everything else where, yeah, for me personally, it was really confusing unless I've done the recipe before and I know the mob type, you know.
I think you represent the kind of player base very well. Like for me, if there was an Exalted Orb recipe, like an Octavian as well, we would be like finding those beasts and where they spawn, and we would be target
Yeah.
farming them. We'd know exactly what's in the recipe, right? But that's because we spent so much time in the system. But yeah, maybe there's just like it's a really bad system. Like you can't actually figure out what you're trying to meant to be farming, right? That's what you're saying.
Yeah,
And
pretty much. Yeah.
there's so much that's obscure that really doesn't need to be. Like there's no balance reason for Krashik and Krashik presence to be different things technically. Like a Krashik what's Krashik Vassal is
Yeah.
a monster type And it's also, if you get a 2-mod version of a Krashik Vassal, it is a Krashik Vassal that's used in certain recipes, but a Krashik Vassal can also have Krashik Presence and be used in different recipes and be worth a lot more. Like,
Well,
why?
I think
why? Why?
the thing that really let it down for me, because I akin this league very similar to Dark Shrines and also very similar to Perendus, but one real missed opportunity was having more distinct visuals on the beasts, especially since it's like, oh, this wolf, what could this wolf be? If there was like, oh, this is the blue aura equals exalted recipe, it doesn't matter what it is, you see it and you go, oh yes, and you start recognizing the visuals instead of hovering over it and then remembering names, especially as, like you say, Octavian, you have the same kind of name reappearing 3, 4, 5 times. So I think having distinct visuals would be one of the real key things that they missed out on there. And also, what do you think about that comparison to Dark Shrines? Because that's one thing which I find quite surprising. People complain so much about how they missed Dark Shrines, and then this league is basically Dark Shrines in the way it acts, and people are like, oh, this league is terrible, it makes no sense.
Wait, how does it compare to Dark Shrines, is the question?
So the thing with Dark Shrines is if you're completely new and you don't know what's going on, you're like, I don't understand this at all, and it wasn't until people found out the recipes and then went, oh, this is how I make money with it, that then everything becomes open and apparent. This seems like an obscure Dark Shrines. I don't know. Did you disagree with that completely, Raiz, or?
I mean, I agree with it. I think, well, Dark Shrine was only 1 month, so we never really had an opportunity to like fully, like people were really focused on trying to make it work like as soon as humanly possible. With Bestiary, it's like you're just playing the game and Bestiary is like alongside it, and only now people are trying to figure out like what to do with it really. But with Dark Shrine, it was like you really tried hard to make it work. So I don't know if it's like an absolutely fair comparison because it was just such a short league, you know.
I don't think that's why it's like. I think the comparison is completely valid. I think because both of them are very like deep systems, right? They take a lot of figuring out. I think the difference is back with Dark Shrine, the player base was a lot smaller. It was a lot more elite. Like you've got people like Ziz and stuff, like really engaging in the mechanic. And I think that there was less casual players and it was less mainstream. So now that we've got like a more mainstream and kind of casual player base with a lot of people coming in who are new, those are the people who don't like Bestiary, like versus the people who do like Dark Shrine back in the day.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of fair. I'll just say something, then I'll let you go on Uber. I guess I guess if you're like completely new, right, average person who like shitposts on Reddit, you maybe watch a few streams, like you click onto like the first like 4 streams of Pee-wee right now. You know, you might have like Mathel doing some bossing, and then he might go like, oh, let's go back to my menagerie, and he creates one item, doesn't enjoy the item he crafts, and then goes, oh, fuck this system. And then you have like Cute Dog with his Necro Nets. And like I guess if you don't see someone like super like, oh, PogChamp in like the top 3 or 4, then you might get like this trickle down mentality, and then like Raiz, you say you just go fuck it, and then because you never like make the effort to engage with the system again, you don't really acknowledge it. Then you have someone like Carve who, when they enabled Horizon Orbs and stuff, printed like 100 Horizons in one day on SSF, and that's like a really big deal. Yeah, I don't know. What were you gonna say, Uber?
I don't know, but on the note of Horizon Orbs, Shaped Underground Sea prints those like crazy. Like you just run like a few of those, and all of a sudden you have like three sets of that, and it's just like, well, I guess I'm gonna be stocked on Horizon Orbs for whenever I want to go for T15 Elder.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying there's not potential good ways to engage with the system with exactly the way it is right now. You know, the way, for instance, you gave the example of Carve. It's just, I guess in my case, I let other people figure it out, and then I jump on the bandwagon.
We'll do the legwork for you.
Yeah, it's kind of what it is.
I think another thing is like Raiz. Did you like Dark Shrine?
I like Dark Shrine, yeah. But I didn't engage. I liked it for the race aspect, not for the league aspect.
Oh, I mean, yeah, but you still like it. Like when people talk about Dark Shrine, they're always like, "Whoa!" It's like vanilla WoW. Like, "Oh, Dark Shrine, it was awesome." That's why people like it. They remember it fondly, right? Everyone loved it. But look at Bestiary. Like Cute Dog, oh, garbage league. Mathel, oh, it's trash. Like, come on. Like, there's no wonder people hate it.
Well, we haven't had a league mechanic yet where just finding it in the map wasn't enough. I mean, I guess sort of something like Essence, where you had to go and then use the Essence on an item, but it's just using a currency. It's not too in depth. Like, you have to find the beasts and then remember to go to this whole different zone that's off your hideout and then look through the recipes. There's just so many extra steps involved, and it's not like it's going to hurt you if you don't do it. You know, you can still, despite what some people are saying, sustain currency and sustain maps and all that sort of thing without interacting with bestiary one bit, aside from to kill or capture the mobs.
I mean, I kind of like equate this league to like a Prophecy 2.0 almost, in ways.
How so?
It's some like you have to like leave mapping to like interact with the bestiary stuff, right? And you have to go kill those mobs, and you know they don't give XP in the bestiary, unless well you're running like Pharaoh's Den, which has a whole bunch of mobs in it. Spoilers, I guess. But
There's monsters in the boss fight.
Yep.
Oh boy.
There's a like you get him to half HP and he teleports you to another room. By the way, those before like if you do run that map, I will spoil this. There's a whole bunch of like yellow mobs in the middle of the fight, like in the ad section. You can't cap them. They just appear as yellow for whatever reason. But yeah, you have to like leave your hideout and do that.
I'd say that's a fairer comparison, honestly, Prophecy in my eyes, than Darkshrine. Because again, Darkshrine was like meant to be broken, meant to be quick.
Oh, yeah.
It meant to be like exploited so early on. While Bestiary is like a upgraded version of Prophecy. Except nobody really thinks of Prophecy that fondly. But I think we do agree in a way that it is a little bit underrated the way Prophecy is. I'm definitely one of the people who doesn't use Prophecy enough, even though it's absolutely justifiable in my style of play, which typically is like trying to get high levels as fast as possible, right?
When people talk about Prophecy,
but I still don't do it.
You go, Uber.
With like calling it Prophecy 2.0, it's kind of like learning from the previous leagues where like you have a mechanic like Prophecy and like you're not really required to interact with it, but Bestiary adds like all these mobs to the main map, and at this point they actually add a lot of loot to the maps. So like even if you're not interacting with like bestiary crafting or whatever, it's still adding something to the map, which Prophecy and it's like basically if you didn't interact with Prophecy, the league was literally just standard or hardcore. It was just a vanilla league. There was nothing except silver coins.
Yeah, I can 100% agree with that. And, like, Prophecy is kind of where I can sort of get where people are coming from when they say they hate this league, because Prophecy, for me, completely killed my enjoyment of PoE. Like, I was, like, really... No, genuinely, I was, like, really hype, and then I had, like... I remember quite vividly, my health was quite bad at the time, and I would log in, and I was playing Prophecy, and because at the time, I was, like, couldn't be bothered to engage mechanic, I felt like I was just playing standard. And because my health wasn't that great, I was like, why am I bothering to engage with this at all? And I like completely like phased out. And that is where most people are sort of coming from. And that was also why, if you kind of remember, like before this league started, when we would talk about it on Baeclast and in videos, I was like, one of the things which might be a real con is it will be that standard like experience for people. But I think that because the rare beasts are so scary and they're so noticeable and they give so much fucking loot, I think in that way they've really succeeded, and I'm hoping that's like a frequent trend, because we saw the same thing in Abyss, like with the big spinny boys, and it's like, oh, this is a big spinny boy, he hits pretty hard. So I'm hoping that if they do keep introducing these new specific monsters, they're like actually noticeable and not just annoying blue guy who spawns in glowy doggos for half an hour.
That's something that you and me can engage with, right? But like, because we just kind of like that sort of thing, but for most people, they don't want like the average. I don't think the average self-scored player, if you were to ask them how do you improve the game, he's like, I want more difficult rare monsters in maps. Like, I don't think that's necessarily something that they want to engage with. Like even something more effective would most likely be just like planting mobs, but don't tell them that they don't give experience. and then
God.
everybody would love it. There would be more density, but they don't give anything, but people get to kill more shit or something.
What the
Even
hell? I
something
feel
like
I'm
that
getting
would be more
insulted.
enjoyable for people.
We just
mean,
want to see the health bars go away.
What are
Us
you trying to
Yeah.
say,
plebs.
Raiz?
I mean,
We don't want challenge. We just want their numbers go bye-bye. Our numbers get big.
that's the general consensus.
Hang on. Okay, no.
How
okay.
little you think of us,
Hey,
right?
okay, no. I think I've
I'm
got
not
the
saying
perfect.
that's a bad thing.
I've got the perfect solution. This is what we do. Okay, so next league, Chris, if you're watching, make a fake trailer for the softcore babies. That's what Raiz is saying, and that'll be like Baby League, and then all the cool kids will be on our own private server, and we'll play the real game. And you could
I
call
don't
it
wanna
like Path
deal
of
with
Exile
this.
Light, and it could have Raiz's face on it, and you could be like, "This is the experience for softcore shitters, sponsored by
No.
RaizQT." Is that what you're saying, Raiz? Is that basically what
So
you want?
you're saying if you went to the average softcore player and you were to tell them, "Hey, dude, you're gonna have more difficult rare monsters," they'd be like, "Hell yeah, fuck yeah, PoE best game ever." That's what you're saying.
So wait, we're gonna get a private server where like the moment we hit a rare mob, we just like automatically get logged out of the game. So that's because apparently that's all hardcore players do.
Yeah, that's the hardcore experience.
We put the logout macro into the game for you. You're welcome.
That
Oh
would
crap!
be,
I aggroed the Minotaur boss. Log.
that would be
Basically,
like
what they're
Chris
going to
Wilson's
do,
design.
if you remember the Razor footprint effect, there's going to be the hardcore footprint effect, and every time you take more than 3 steps, your macro logs you out. It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
I mean, that's the Chris Wilson experience, right? It would be like he always wanted players to just die, so the hardcore player would just see it and log out, and the softcore player would just see it and then die, and that would be the game. I mean, that would be optimal.
Also every 3 steps you log out, and then there's like a 1% chance that you stay in the game for 6 seconds.
The
1%.
true end game. The true end game. Okay.
It's 50-50, dude. You either do or you don't. That's it.
So, with the kind of like mixed opinion that we just all gave on Bestiary, do the people here actually want it to go core? And if it does go core, do we think it needs to be made stronger, Beastcrafting, or is it too strong? Like, I don't know. Where do people kind of fall on that fence?
I think the parallels to Prophecy on that topic are actually really interesting, because I think Prophecy going core was one of the, I don't know, maybe saying best is a bit of an overstatement, but I think it's one of the better mechanics we've had go core, even though we've just been kind of ragging on it as something that people don't really interact with, because it's allowed them to pull a bunch of these crap uniques up from the muck and make them actually useful with faded versions. And there's a lot of like just really useful things you can do with Prophecy, and I think Bestiary has the same potential, and we're kind of just going through some growing pains to add a potentially really cool mechanic to the game.
Can I just add something about Prophecy? Like, I haven't said anything about it yet, and my
This
friend's
is the
gonna kill me.
Prophecy episode now.
But Prophecy is so OP. Like, no one gives it any credit. Like, if you're talking about 6 links, like, oh, I want a easy 6 link, you can buy a Varwind's Prophecy, run 1 map, you get like 3. Like, and if you got a full group, you like get everyone in there. Like, you're made in the tier 16 Haunted Mansions, you get like 15 6 links with a Varwind's Prophecy, and they cost like 10 chaos. So Prophecy is really OP. Like, as you guys are saying, like sextant modifiers, and it's not that hard to buy them. You just set up a whoop for them and buy like 5 off one guy spending Prophecies. It's so easy. Like, it's the biggest sleeper league, and it really doesn't get enough credit.
But yeah, I don't know. I think Bestiary would be good for the game if a lot of the kinks were ironed out, which I still think there's plenty of them.
Yeah, and they didn't
but-
do that with Prophecy either, right? Like, because the problem with
No.
Prophecy is that it doesn't proc always. Like, that's the
Mhm.
one problem. Like, you have to seal it and then redo it, seal it, redo it. Like, if that was fixed, Prophecy would be sick.
It would be
And
so
they
good.
need to, yeah, they need to make sure they nail it with Bestiary. Like, I hope they fix it. The one big problem I want to talk about here, and the one thing I want to make sure that GGG know, is the beast cap. Like, are you kidding me? Like, you'll capture a beast with 5 out of 5, and it's like an 80 chaos beast, and then it gets deleted. Like, what? What a joke.
Yep, I've lost like 300 chaos worth of beasts to that. I didn't realize that my because it only warns you when you're capturing your second to last spot. So say you have like 5 max beasts in that pen or whatever. When you capture the 4th beast, it'll say you only got 1 left. Be careful, kid. And then when you capture a 5th, it doesn't say shit. And you capture a 6th, it just deletes it quietly in the background, assumes you don't want it, even though it's like
Well,
100 chaos.
Well, that's unless like it's like the highest rarity ones don't get deleted.
It's the highest
They
level
just
ones.
replace.
Yeah, it's the
oh,
item level.
is
it's
it
not
by
the
level?
rarity.
Yeah, and there are some that are eye level 70 that are worth way more than some that are eye level 80 if they have the right mod.
Wait, are you
Yeah.
sure about that? Because like,
Yeah.
I remember I've captured like a white beast in a zone, and it doesn't give me the credit for like capturing it. And then I capture like the same mob type in like a rare but instead it's rare, and then it suddenly gives me the
I mean,
credit.
the system is
Counts.
obtuse enough that like there might be something going on that I'm not aware of, but I have lost a few hundred chaos in good beasts, and
Yeah.
Oh,
they
yeah, I
were
don't-
rarer mods.
I don't deny that that's the thing, because like there's like a top thread on Reddit where some guy like died while capturing a beast, and like Einhard like never came. I don't know if he like resurrected while the capture was happening or something, and so he capped it and then resurrected in hideout, and Einhard never came in and set his line. He never got the soccer wall capture, and it was just gone.
Yeah.
Do you guys think there even needs to be a cap? Because for people who missed it on the last one, like, Raiz didn't even know there was a cap on the last podcast, right? Like, it's
Oh.
such a stupid system. And
I'll-
especially with the...
No,
like-
wait. I knew the cap. I didn't know the thing.
Oh,
The-
okay, sorry. But
selecting.
like, it's such a like hidden system, and like I've been in the exact same situation as Uber, where I'm like trying to fill in my Pokedex for the challenges. So you like see this random shitty white mob, isn't named or anything. You go to capture it, doesn't capture. So then you try and like capture like 6 of them, and then the whole time you're doing this, you're potentially like deleting other beasts, and I don't know.
I think
I mean,
I have a sneaking suspicion that the only reason there's a limit is so that they can show you your shiny fancy beasts in your menagerie, so that they
I
can
think
like
it's-
not overcrowd the pens.
I think it's because of concerns about space, like server space and stuff.
server space?
'cause- yeah, because like each account has to have that. So,
I
but
suppose.
like there are solutions around it. I don't know how hard they would be to program is the problem.
Yeah,
Like it seemed like having some sort of programming experience. I can imagine it can be pretty hard, but it depends. Like if it's capped, then you just get like a bestiary orb of that mob. But like then again, that can be like considered somewhat insane, because like then somebody who's not like engaging with like bestiary at all is suddenly every single beast they cap, they have an orb for it, and then suddenly that starts filling up their stash, and
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's just a
real
server
shame.
problem. These
Mm.
things have to exist somewhere, right? Like,
yeah,
just
exactly.
they were just afraid that it takes up storage space somewhere on something. I don't really know anything about
I don't think so. Like, I mean, what you're comparing it to, it's a rare item for the most part. It's got mods on it, right? That's what it is. And people have thousands of them in softcore and like standard and stuff like that. It's just a rare item. That's what it's being stored as on the database. So it's not a storage problem. I think it's more what Octavian was saying. The menagerie, like they wanted to be able to display them without it looking ridiculous. So I'd say that's more what it is.
And they could just have like a display thing, like a display capture, or maybe because like even the menagerie in itself, it's really cool, but it's so wasted because you have this arena, which, as you've already said, you map, you stop mapping, you go back to your hideout, you then go to the arena, then you have a separate instance which has like 4 other separate instances. So wouldn't it just be better if you could maybe like incorporate something to do with the menagerie into your hideout? You pick which ones, like once you've captured it, you've unlocked the appearance, and it's just like a purely like hideout decoration style thing. As showing in the background, people love decorating the hideouts. All 2 of us enjoy doing it anyway. And then completely get rid of the cap bullshit, or just have like a visual cap. Because it does seem particularly bad that one of the things that I like about Bestiary is it breaks up the gameplay. If I want to map for 30 hours and then be like, I want to have a break and just like manage some arena stuff, I can. But because of that physical cap, it punishes you from ignoring it for a day, you know? You want to have a system which you choose when to engage with it. You don't want to feel like you're literally wasting currency on the floor, like, oh, I'm not going to pick up this fusing because I have too many fusings in my stash.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be nice if like if there was some sort of system where like if you capture a mob, you can and your bestiary is full, you have like the choice to like after the map you can talk to Einhar, and like he keeps in mind like the last like 5 beasts you capped that were over the limit, and you can choose like, okay, I want to replace this beast and then get this one in, or I can be like, you know, I'm gonna go craft something with this beast so I have room for this beast now and be able to put that into my bestiary.
Yeah,
But
I
a lot
really
of
like
it
that
also,
idea.
a lot of it also comes from the UI. Like you can't really, like, have you ever looked at the captured beast tabs when you open your bestiary thing and you in the like achievement section?
It's a complete mess.
It is a complete fucking mess.
And one last thing on the cap topic. If they're going to implement a cap, I think they also kind of need to implement a delete functionality.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
it takes so much time and effort sometimes to find exactly the beast that you want to get rid of and do a shitty recipe to get rid of it or something. Or, you know, heaven forbid, just spend a chaos to get rid of it because you don't want to be damned to waste your time. Why can't I delete the crappy little sand spitter that I got just to fill out my bestiary challenge that's doing nothing for me and is never going to be useful?
Why can't we convert those into like scrolls or something? I would
Yeah,
love to
that's
have
it.
a recipe that gives us portal scrolls just for like 3 white mobs.
Sure.
Interesting thought. What if they just condense everything down into a system which makes sense? So you have the subsections. No,
But that
okay,
would
hear me
make
out. Hear me
sense.
out. Okay, so you have like the creatures of the sands. Then it's just like all scorpions go into these recipes. Get rid of all the like the mini bullshit. If you condense the system down, then there's less stuff you need to display. If you see, oh, rare scorpion, it is one of these 3 recipes. And if you shrink everything down that way, it becomes more accessible to people. It makes more sense, and you have way less issue everywhere else.
No, you need canines for fucking everything. God damn
But
it.
like, wouldn't that
Canine
solve the
estuary.
fucking problem though? If they just like shrunk down all this bloat, and it's just this beast equals that craft, this type equals that.
I think that's a bit OP, because the idea behind the mods is that they can kind of like make certain mods rare, right? Like if you just need a level 80 octopus, like you'd have so many harbinger obs, right? Like
Yeah, but you rebalance it around it, so it's like 1 octopus, 1 like wretch, 1 rower equals this craft. And
I
it could
mean,
be
but
like
then
it
how
requires
would you
the red
engage with the
ones,
mobs?
or it could engage. You have the mods
mean-
exactly the same, but you just
No,
have
no,
it
no,
like
the mobs. Like you would see a lot less of the mobs now.
no, because you just rebalance it.
How do you rebalance it?
Okay, so
Right.
currently it's like if you see a doggo, the doggo could have like lots of different modifiers on it. But like the rower charge, you could make the rower charge only applies to rowers. Do you kind of get what I mean? So it's like if you have specifically this mod equals this beast, then when you see a beast, you know exactly what it is from the get-go.
So
Oh.
instead of like all creatures of, I think, the sands being able to do the Roa charge you're talking about, you assign that to a specific creature of the sands, and they each genus has its own bestiary mod.
Yeah, exactly. So you would see more of the same kinds of beasts. So rather than be like 100 different beasts that spawn, there might only be like 10. And you just split out the frequency that they spawn.
So you'd still have recipes calling for something with Spectral Stampede or with Krakic Presence, but
Yeah.
Krakic Presence would only ever happen on an octopus.
Yeah.
For instance.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easier, yeah. It's more visual.
I think
Still have
I
to
think
remember.
if you like, I think kind of what that would end up becoming is just like if you were to get rid of, like if you were to make this like a core mechanic, you would just get rid of like yellow beasts in their entirety and just have red beasts, like, because that just makes it more simple. But that does exactly what you're saying, is lowers the amount of beasts that there are, and if this is a core mechanic, then you know it's not as complicated.
I mean, it's cool to talk about this stuff, but they're not going to do any of that. They're not going to get rid of the menagerie, and they're not going to take away their massive system they worked months on, right? Like, I mean, if we're talking about ways to fix it, we
I
should try and
mean,
kind of...
It
Oh,
depends.
you think they're
right?
going to do it? They would take
Well,
rid
it
of
depends.
it? Oh, okay.
Like, when the question was posted about whether bestiary should go core, some people said no, and to me that's shocking because I don't understand why you can just not engage with the system. If other people enjoy it, they can keep using it. But then some people still said no, and if you have enough of these people who say no just because they don't like maybe not the idea of the league, but the way the league has been executed, then if you have enough of these people, it's just not going to go core. I mean, that's
I
what
mean-
happened with Invasion. Eventually, it was really good, right? But because the initial impressions of people were so bad, it never went core.
I mean,
think-
like,
I would
Go
be
ahead.
shocked personally, but I mean, shit.
I think I would compare it to Uber Lab. Like, I hate Uber Lab. I hate Lab in general. It's cool. Some people love it. I hate it. But again, as you said, you don't have to engage with it, right? If
Yeah.
you're not engaging with Bestiary, you're just getting more loot, right? Just more pack size. But for someone like me or Octavian, like we have the option to go like do our thing with it, right?
Well,
I
to be
think.
fair,
Oh,
sorry,
go
go
on.
ahead.
No, I'll let you go.
To be fair, unlike Uber Lab, it would be like in that equivalency, it would be like if Azaro or a mini Azaro just showed up in your map every once in a while. Like this mechanic is shoving itself into the player's face of the player who doesn't like it, because you'll get that legendary beast every now and again. So it is a
Yeah, but-
bit more intrusive. Though, to be fair, you kind of do have that already in the fact that you got to go do your labs at least 4 times on a character.
Yeah, but I think that's a bit of unfair, right? Like if
A
the
little,
people,
a little.
I think the people who are unhappy are the people that expected to get a really cool league, right? Like a breach league or something like that, and instead they got something that they don't really like, and it's basically standard for them. I think that's why they're unhappy, and I don't think they're going to be as unhappy when this goes core and they get something shiny and new which they like next league, right? It's going to be like, oh, okay, that's a beast. I'll just one shot and get it some extra loot.
Yeah, but like, so this is my opinion. I love this league. I've really enjoyed this league, and I'm one of the people who's been like championing for this league to go core, and I've gotten a lot of hate from certain videos. I'm like, guys, calm down. I really think this should go core, but I think that it's one of those things of if you do have a system which is kind of unpopular due to like bad UI and feature bloat, and feature bloat, if you make every league go core, you do end up with some problems. So if you can condense this league down a little bit in kind of like the amount of random bullshit you need to remember in all the different name types. Also, like, condense the nets down a bit. The fact we have 10 different kind of nets is a little bit of a meme. Like, if you had one net, which was, like, it's this one net type from Act 1 to Act 5, this one from Act 5 to Act 10, these are then the map nets, and these are then the necro nets. You cut it down to 3 or 4, then suddenly that feels a lot better, because I actually ended up in a situation where, at the start of the league, nets were super common. Like, nets were raining everywhere. So then I ended up making my loot filter really strict, and I only showed the top tier nets, and I was fine. I then level a bunch of characters, and since you can use the high level nets to one-shot the low level beast or leveling, which is really OP by the way, I'm like PogChamp, I then level like 5 or 6 characters, not picking up any other like low tier nets. Then suddenly a month into the league, I rip 2 characters which were carrying all of my nets, and so I'm like, oh shit, I haven't got any of the low tier nets because I stopped picking those up. And now I've only got, like, Necro Nets. And I don't really want to use Necro Nets on, like, an Act 2 rower. And one thing which is also quite funny about that is the leveling suddenly became so much scarier. For the last, like, 5 or 6 characters, I'm skipping all the rares and legendaries because I one-shot them. And GG keeps buffing how scary the rares are. And I was leveling my last character, I'm like, why am I struggling so hard? I'm like, oh yeah, I actually have to, like, fight these beasts now. This is kind of scary.
Just don't die, idiot.
I mean, I didn't die. I made it through. It was
Nice.
fine, but it was just kind of like, I think that's an example where you can definitely shrink down. And people saying, well, can't you buy nets from that guy? Yeah, you can buy nets from the guy, but I don't want to spend like 20 alks to get some nets for Act 7. Like, fuck that, you know. I just
Isn't that like
just
10
changed
exalts?
my filter and just started picking up stuff again, and it was fine. But I think we can agree we don't need like 10 different kinds of nets. That is a little excessive, right?
No, I-
Yeah.
I think there could be like one variety of net, and then it just looks at your character level when you throw the net, sees if you're appropriately leveled for catching that beast.
I
That
mean,
sort
I
of thing.
think a part of it, like even with the nets and with the amount of recipes that are questionable, I think overall they just kind of try to overwhelm the players so that it would feel engaging, like they're not just playing standard outside of like fighting people, you know, because you do have to like, I mean, as negative as Tarke's impressions of the system was due to all the stuff that he just mentioned, eh, he's talking about it, he's thinking about it, he had to like do something with it, do something about it when he was leveling, right? So in a way he was engaging with the system, as annoying as it was. And I think these sort of things are definitely going to go away as people now will already be introduced to the system. And if it does go core, which I would be shocked if it wouldn't, you know, won't be a problem in the next league, right? These are the sort of things that I think I'd be shocked if they didn't just like naturally fix them, you know, even maybe up to a point of having just a single net for everything. But then it makes
Yeah.
it kind of annoying for leveling, because for leveling it is really cool to one shot the red mobs with the with the big nets, right?
Yeah,
So-
I mean that's one thing that I think we didn't really mention is that this league actually seems to like encourage rerolls, honestly, because I think this was intended, honestly, that you can like just go grab like 100 strong steel nets and then you can one shot like every single like beast, boss or rare or whatever with those nets, and then just like once you've killed Katava, you go into your menagerie, and then you're like, oh, I have like a whole bunch of uniques I can craft, and there's a bunch of low level uniques. Like I just got like 2 item level 20 wands. I could potentially get a poet's pen out of that, like.
Yeah, that definitely feels good. And also 360 no scoping Weaver every time feels amazing. So good. So fucking good.
I think the other trick that I've started using for leveling is like there's a whole bunch of like you can get like vile hatchery spiders at item level at like level 44 spiders. That's the highest tier of life you can get on a ring. And when you're crafting rare items, which I know everybody is like, lol, you're just gonna get 3 life. No, you can actually get some good stuff. And the thing is, it only I actually need to reconfirm this, but from what I remember of testing, it only uses that level for that specific roll. So if you roll life guaranteed, it only uses item level 44 for the life roll, and then everything else rolls based off of the base item level. So
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
you can actually like re-roll certain rares with that and potentially get something good. I've actually crafted a few decent like amulets and rares because of that.
One thing which is quite funny about that, because I remember I was watching your stream the first time you said that, and I didn't know about that system before. And then I uploaded a video where I was trying to roll these shaper gloves, and people were like, Tarke, the reason why the gloves keep failing is because of the beast eye level. And I'm like, no, actually, that's only dictating one of the 8 No, Tarke, you can't get shaper mods because you're using a beast of a too low level. And it's like, no, it's... Even that is quite a good example of how what should be a very simple system is like way more convoluted than it seems at first glance.
I mean,
It's
we have
GGG's
this
specialty.
We have this, yeah, exactly. We have this with so many systems. Like we added sextants, and then like they were super confusing, and and then they changed it, and then all of a sudden like we figure out the shape strategy, and then the next league we figure out like sextant blocking, and all of that, and then like for example with the Elder Shaper influence, we figure out doing like perma elder, and like portals are like insanely strong and all of that. So it's like we have that with a lot of these systems these days that get added to the game. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. Oftentimes I would say like some of the systems, like sometimes you find something that's like, okay, it's a neat trick, but it's probably not worth the time, because we have like these mechanics where we have things like perma elder, which are insanely strong, and it's like, well, why would I waste my time, doing this in comparison to like wasting my time setting up an elder ring, and I can get 25 maps that are perma eldered and gain like and double like my mob density on all my maps.
Yeah, but most people don't perceive the game that way, I don't think.
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah. So there's always going to be stuff like this, but like even the perma elder stuff, or even like sextant blocking, it took a really long time before sextant blocking was like the standard for people in general. And I mean, if you were, again, the larger part of the people playing Path of Exile are not a part of the community, right? So I mean, unless you're one of those dudes that doesn't watch anything and doesn't read anything, and you're just playing the game and you figured out sextant blocking, I mean, props to you, but there's probably not that many people who have done something like that. And I would imagine that this is probably going to be go a similar way, where eventually it's going to become the standard just because of how much information will spread about it.
Dude, we're
I
like
mean-
snapshotting Elder influence on maps using the Templar lab.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, like, it always takes quite a long time for the metas to trickle down, and from this we can go into the Elder Ring discussion. But like, I think Bisco's is the best example of how long it takes for stuff to trickle down. So like, Bisco's gets released at 150 quant, and it's like 1C for the first league it's out, and not many people are really using it. They then nerf it, and it wasn't until it got nerfed down to 100 that the general community kind of picked up that, oh, this is maybe a good thing. And then got like nerfed down again, and it's now 50, and now a lot of people have moved on to the talisman, 10% talismans, and it's probably going to be like another league or two till the general population goes on to, oh yeah, the Shaper amulet and the talismans are actually better, and just it always takes a few months for stuff to trickle down. So, Elder, in that sense, Uber, would you like to briefly explain what is an Elder Ring?
So an Elder Ring is basically you make this really long path around your atlas, and you have a gap between your Elder spawn and one of his guardians, and you do this by you make this ring where like the whole thing is connected, and then you break the ring by killing one of his guardians. So there's like this really long path where Elder's influence goes around this really long path just to connect to his guardian, because he needs to be connected to his guardian. If he is not connected to the guardian, then how is that getting Elder influence? So there's 2 rules for this, and that's rule 1 is that he has to be connected to all of his guardians at all times, and the second rule is that the maximum amount of maps he can influence is 30. If you try to clear a Shaper map to spread Elder influence, but Elder is already controlling 30 maps, it just won't spread. The Shaper influence just disappears. And so what people are doing in order to get that to 30 is they clear like a Guardian out, and then they because Shaper can't influence any maps that are next to tier 1 because there's no tier 0 map, they put Elder influence on dead end maps where Shaper can't take over the map, so they fill that out to get all 30 maps filled out, and then they can run anything in that ring except like the dead end maps for permanently with Elder, and get a potential of like void portals, potential extra like eyeball mobs. And just
why
extra...
did you do this, Tarke?
Can I just say I fucking loved Raiz's face. You could just see like the growing, just like, oh no, what's happening?
You've set up Uber
But,
for such a nasty task.
I know.
There's no way
But
to
one thing I will
without,
say
like,
though,
visually
okay, so
showcasing it.
anyone in chat who's still a little bit confused, I had a conversation with Carve this morning. Carve is committed. Anyone who sends a picture, he will sit down and explain to you one-on-one, and he will help you. So anyone from now until the future, if you're ever confused, just send Carve a message and he will explain it to you one by one. That is a 100% true fact.
Is this gonna be the new this is gonna be the new sextant blocking? Hey
Okay.
streamer, how
Pretty
do you do Elder Ring? Can you explain Elder Rings to me, please? Is
Keep
it
No,
it
no,
under 5
Uber,
minutes, though.
it's not Hey Streamer, it's Hey Carve. Remember, only Carve. He's the only streamer qualified, so you don't need to ask me, you don't need to ask Uber, you don't need to ask Raiz how it works. Or Grimro or Octavian, just only ask Carve. Carve will help you out. Only Carve.
Carve is in chat?
He's
that's
Atlas,
the-
shouldering the burden of the world of streamers.
Yeah,
Everyone, go to Carve.
Yeah,
it's the
also you
difficult
can go to-
part, right?
You can also go to Raiz for price checks.
Oh yeah.
Great, thanks. But that's the difficult part, right? Where sextant blocking was difficult enough to explain, but like once you've grasped the concept, it was actually pretty simple. But you can still understand the concept of an Elder Ring and the benefits of it and how to path through it. But you can still fuck up setting up your Elder Ring, which is something that I don't think a whole lot of people understand if it does break when you're setting it up, and that's where like people get really confused about it. But like the TLDR is you set up a ring around your Atlas that's 29 or 29, sometimes 28 maps. The point of it is to have permanent Elder influence, and that way you can spawn like extra mobs and portals, all these things that give you a lot of XP and a lot of map drops and a lot of currency drops. And that's like basically what you're supposed to do with it.
Yeah.
How you're setting it up, go to Carve.
It's like getting an extra sextant on your map permanently
More.
for free,
It's
and
more than that,
also you
It's
get.
more.
I was gonna keep going. You also get better rare drops. Like, if it's in a high enough level zone, like because you shape the map with an Elder Orb or just a regular Shaper's Orb in some cases, you can get bases that drop that are worth so much money. I sold just like an hour before the podcast, I sold a Elder Touched Bone Helmet for like 10x. Like if you get the right
10x
base,
only?
it
Only
wasn't
10x?
that high eye level, but yes, 10x. And I'm sure it could go for more, as Uber's excitement shows. Maybe I got scammed. I'm okay with a scam
Probably.
that results in with me getting 10x though. Yeah, like it's kind of crazy having Elder and Shaper influence, because it's free after you've set it up. It's an investment of time and currency and annoyance, but once you get it set up, it is just free forever from then.
If you
It's
set it
really-
up properly.
Yes, if you set it up exactly right with like a 2-gap break, that's the most stable formation. You can basically just set it then forget it. Like you just there's like 3 maps you don't run, and you can run the rest of your atlas just fine.
It's not that simple. Has anyone else?
Well,
actually
it's
got
not
an
simple
Elden
to
Ring?
set up, but
Yeah.
Do you guys
I
have
mean,
Elden
it's
Ring?
simple if you just get lucky. Then it's really simple to set up.
It's not like oh, you have 3 exact maps. You can't, like, each ring is going to be different depending on what maps you want in it, and that's why it's kind of like a little bit difficult. And that's why Carve's obviously volunteering to
Yeah.
actually figure people's atlas out. Like Cute Dog's got a completely different ring than me because he's doing Haunted Mansion, and his maps that he can't run are completely different as well. So it's a little bit more
Which-
complicated.
Which he also got help from Carvon.
Carve
Yeah,
was telling me about that. Basically, what happened is Carve checked his Discord message, and there was a message from Cute Dog saying, "I'll give you a tier 3 sub if you explain to me how to set up an Elder Ring," which I fucking love because that is like premium Cute Dog. Like, there's this interesting mechanic. Let me just get my wallet out real quick. Okay, I've fixed this mechanic. But out of interest, do you guys think that the Elder Ring needs to be like nerfed or changed? Not just because it's so blatantly powerful, but also because it's so obtuse.
I don't think it needs to be changed because it's obtuse. I think it's actually pretty easy to understand as opposed to sex and blocking, right? Like, it's just make a ring and fill in some fill maps. I do think it needs to be nerfed though. I'll let you go, Reba.
Yeah, it needs to be nerfed for sure. Like, honestly, I think at this point, what needs to happen is, like, I think a lot of things, mapping, need to get nerfed, and I could probably go on for like 20 minutes about this. Some things need to be nerfed, some things need to be buffed, like, red maps are just god-awful in terms of pack size, across the board, average, except for, like, a couple. But, like, Elder Portals are just so strong. Whenever you get Elder Portals, you're like, yes, I got Elder Portals. That's like the equivalent of like 2 or 3 sextants at that point, because they drop so much loot, and like the portals drop maps. Why do they still drop maps?
Okay,
by the way?
let's clarify. Do you think Elder Rings need to be nerfed? Do you think
Oh no.
Elder Influence needs to be nerfed, or do you think portals need to be nerfed?
Portals. Just the
Portals. Just
Yeah.
the portals, yeah.
Okay.
Well, maybe the eyes too that shoot the lightning shit. Although those can really hurt.
yeah, those are deadly if you turn the wrong corner.
Yeah,
It's
you
just a
turn the
face
corner
full of
and you
death.
just you turn the corner and you press and you're like, hey streamer, look, I got this item, and you press enter and you look at it and then you just get blasted by a whole bunch of lightning projectiles.
So the eyes are scary, but the Kitava Heralds aren't.
Oh, the Katava Heralds are really dangerous, but they don't roll every single time on portals.
Yeah.
No, and once you've killed the first few, they die as soon as they come out of the portal. If you're doing any sort of significant
Oh, yeah.
damage, they die before they can even move.
Yeah,
Portals
I
are
mean,
just free loot pinatas after you kill the first pack that spawns with them.
So maybe
think
the
it's-
right word is normalize portals rather than nerf this shit all across the board. Because I don't know if like I have a problem. Like I've been running okay, because you also have to take into account like Elder snapshotting, right? Where you put in
Yeah.
maps into the lab and you put in multiple at the same time, and that way your Elder influence essentially stays on all of those maps. Which is essentially what a ring is, except you have to go through the annoyance of, instead of setting up a ring, you have to set up your maps in your lab, right? And you
And
can
you lose quant.
essentially, yeah, and you lose quantity too. But I've been running a whole lot of that, and while sometimes it is annoying, you generally don't lose much time setting it up. And at the same time, running like Shaper Influence is also pretty good. So oftentimes I'd, for instance, be running, just a single map and it would rotate, right? Elder Shaper, Elder Shaper, Elder Shaper. One of them would leave. I'd run another map, bam, the influence is back on, and just keep rotating that. And honestly, Shaper Influence can be pretty useful too. It also drops maps. There's mobs. The boss typically drops maps. It's not as good as portals, but when it comes to like the mobs themselves, I mean, the Shaper mobs are a lot easier, and they do drop enough, just uncomparably to the portals, that really stand out.
I
Shaper
mean,
freezes the boss though, right? For, like,
God,
10
Yeah,
yes.
that's the only
What?
yeah. Shaper
And
freezing the boss and you having to stand in animation for multiple seconds. That's pretty bad.
yeah,
And then making
it's
the loot drop slowly. Like, why?
Yeah, that too.
It was
he also
cool and
heals the boss.
cinematic the first time, not the 500th.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fact that it
But
heals the boss.
I think that something like an Elder Loop and like snapshotting maps or trying to get like equilibrium so that you don't lose a constant rotating spawn, that sort of thing is exactly what Shaper and Elder Influence should be. But obviously, like any other system, there's going to be balancing required, and some ways of interacting with it are going to be stronger than others. And I think an Elder Loop, particularly portals, as we've kind of narrowed it down to, is that strong thing that needs to be nerfed. But I don't want to see that level of interaction with the Atlas go away. That is one of the cooler things that's come out of recent expansions. Like, instead of looking at my Atlas and just seeing a sea of trash maps and then like one good one that I'm going to run and never visit any of the others, it's kind of nice to have an Elder Ring and be able to actually do 7 or 8 good maps without worrying about my Sexton blocking. This is a
That's exactly it.
yeah, it's a healthy way of interacting with the Atlas rather than sextanting, which was a very unhealthy way that narrowed the mechanic down to a pinpoint of boringness.
That's brilliant. Like I couldn't have said it better. That's exactly it. Elder rings are, in my opinion, the right way of doing sextants. So for sure.
Yeah, I mean,
think-
like,
Agreed.
go ahead.
I was just
Yeah.
gonna say, I think the funny thing is they buffed the null portals this patch. It drops the breach card, which gives you the breach uniques. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Like, what the hell? They did not
I mean,
need that.
maybe they wanted people to engage with it on such a level. Maybe it wasn't popular enough, you know? I mean, it's not like Elder Influence is new. It's not like Elder Snapshotting is new. I mean, there might have been people who have been setting it up, since day 2 of Elder Influence. It's just like community's catching up to it now. I mean, I didn't know about it until I think just before this league. So, and yeah, I mean, how long has Elder Influence been out? For a while at that point, right?
I mean, the reason we didn't really need it last league is because you could just run the map that Elder was on without killing the Guardians, and that's what people did
Yeah.
instead. Is they would just try and get Elder on the map instead of setting up a ring. But then people figured out, hey, I can just set up a ring and do that, and so people started doing that instead. So
Also, wasn't it like you couldn't spawn mobs or something? Extra mobs on a map that had a Guardian or had Elder? One or the other?
it was
Guardians
if-
didn't work, Elder did.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the way it works is it's like a roll, and what is prioritized is if Elder or his Guardian is going to replace the boss, that's the roll, right there. If that's not going to happen, then it chooses between like adding mobs or whatever.
Right. Makes sense.
So,
Okay. So, also just to briefly warp the topic a little bit, since most of you are probably running like indoor maps mostly now, like just briefly, how did we find the map density changes? Like, good, bad? Does that also need revisiting, or?
Oh God.
I think me and Uber both have a lot to say. You go ahead, Uber.
I think I have a real problem with density right now, and okay, so we've got this whole like story mode where Act 1 to 10. If you basically look at the density from Act 1 to Act 10, you'll notice that each act, as you go up, you get more and more and more density. So why the hell is it when you go into red maps, the density gets lower than yellows on average?
That's easy because they don't want you to sustain 216s, right? That's the end game.
But you can do that in other ways. Like, for me personally, the way I like this has been the case since Atlas of Worlds has come out. I always have mostly T12s, and it goes up to T13s if I like full complete Atlas because of the bonus, but it's mostly T12s that I have. But there's like they try to balance the maps around XP per hour, but I feel like what it should be is like as you go up in the maps, like the density should get higher, or alternatively, the map layouts should be bigger so they have more mobs in them. So maybe it's not density that's the problem. The maps just need to be bigger so they have more mobs.
They've done that in a few places, but it's not the places that need it. You know, like there are some maps that are just absurdly huge as compared to others. Coral Ruins is like actually almost twice the size of a lot of other maps, more than for some of them. It's ridiculous, and I don't know why. But yeah, I think that density in natural red maps has got to be upped if they want people to ever go back to them. Especially now that you can take any map on the Atlas and turn it into a T16.
Underground Sea versus Mesa was one of my examples. I ran a few Mesas while I was trying to push for 100, and I'm like, because I'm just like, okay, I have 30 curse crypts, I'm never gonna run them. I'm gonna trade them up into Mesas just because I want to build up my map pool better. And I'm just like looking at my rampage, and I'm like 400, 450, 400 at the end of a map, and I'm like, what the hell? And then I go to Underground Sea, and I'm like getting to 1,000 every single map, and I'm like, what? What?
I mean,
Pretty unfair comparison there because that's Sea Witches, right? Like you can't
Well,
compare that.
I mean, just
even when it's
compare
not Sea
Mesa
Witches.
to like last league. Like Mesa used to feel so good to run, and you run it now, and you're just like, fuck, this got wrecked.
well, do
Even
you
when
guys,
it had 600, it was fine.
do you
like,
guys
it's all
really
good.
think they're trying to create this like utopian system where everybody with every build is happy and like I don't feel like that's what they're going for at all. Where they're trying to actually create this system where every map is equal to every map for every build, and you've got like all these
Oh
options.
no.
Like
But
in my opinion, they're just trying to control the meta and shift things in certain ways. Otherwise, they would approach the system more gradually, like they did last time. Like the fact that they changed map sizes and map density in like the same patch is pretty surprising because obviously that would still run into problems rather than like doing it gradually. So in a way it's almost as if they were trying to like shift things in certain directions rather than just normalize things across the board.
I
I
mean,
mean,
just briefly to interrupt, sorry, that's kind of the direction GGG's been going in a while. Like, if you remember
Yeah.
old school GGG, be like every couple of weeks, small tweaks, small tweaks. And we'll talk about this later with the skill rework. It seems like they've gone away from that, and now it's just like all or nothing, dick on the table, must be massive fucking overhaul. But yeah, what were you gonna say? Sorry.
no, it's good. It's I don't want homogeneous mapping. Like as I said earlier, I'm very glad that we have the Elder Ring and that sort of thing. So we're moving away from a meta where it's ideal to run a specific map and only that map. I think it's always going to end up being that way because even if they're very minor differences, Path of Exile's community is one that will hone in on those and play only the absolute best, or at least a portion of the player base. But I do want my red map, my T13 map. Let's take Malformation as an example because it is the biggest problem child in my opinion. To actually feel like it's worth my time. Like I don't think that there should be within a certain tier, within T13s, maybe a best natural T13 and a worst one. But I don't think any T13 should feel way worse to run than like a T10, which
Yeah.
Malformation definitely feels way worse than
So what
even
you're
like
saying
Precinct.
is you want more density,
In some maps and less in others potentially.
right?
Yeah. Like that's how I feel too. It's like Malformation in particular. It's like you kill a pack and then you have to run for 2 screens before you see the next pack, and then there's also like the backtracking because there's like that one like side path that like branches out super far, and then there's the boss, which is kind of a pain in the ass. And like red maps in particular too. the biggest problem with this is like we had this whole like issue at the start of the league where people were like, "Oh, I can't sustain maps," and it's like, well, what are you doing? Are you doing shape strat or are you doing normal strat? Because everybody doing shape strat doesn't seem to have any problems, you know. And everybody's doing the normal method because they want to get to Uber Elder, but unlocking all these like crappy maps, well, they have crappy density. Even sometimes crappy layouts go with the crappy density, and so yeah.
Yeah, but maybe that's what they want, right?
Oh, fuck off. This is like in Hearthstone we must have bad cards, so players know when they found the good map to run.
No. I mean, getting to Elder and getting to Shaper is the reward, not XP and drops along the way.
I mean, we can talk about that a bit later when we talk about, like, Elder RNG in and of itself, but I think that, like, one thing which is kind of interesting is you don't necessarily need to always increase density, even if you just made the maps a lot smaller. Like, for example, if you knew that there was like a specific tier 14 map, which it might have less monsters than a haunted mansion, but it's this really small map, so you can like chain them super quick, then it might actually have less monsters, but that feels like a really rewarding thing because it's like it's just this
City
tiny
Square.
fort. Yeah, exactly.
City Square is the perfect example of that. Like, I'm trying to get Valve Fireball working again, and City Square is like the perfect candidate for Valve Fireball right now. So.
Yeah, 100% that. Like, if you want to have this thing where you don't want to just, like, completely increase density everywhere across the board, if there was, like, one Vol Pyramid style where it's just, like, one really open bottom floor layout, really packed, you go up the stairs, another really packed, go up the stairs, arena at the top, and done, and you can just chain them super fast, there may be way less monsters and maybe way easier to sustain like Underground Sea or Haunted Mansion, but some builds will feel absolutely amazing in there. And you'll have like when people used to speedrun old gorges, you have the people like, oh, look at my 30-second square layout or whatever, you know.
And like tying into that, having, you know, just different ways to tweak the map to make it feel better. Shrinking it could work. I mean, Bestiary, we could tie it back into that. There's a bunch of maps that are better to run now because they have beasts that are worth hunting. You know, Leyline. Reef, Leyline. Nobody gave a shit about these maps before. Nobody really ran shaped Leyline ever, but it's on my atlas now because I can go there for Waste Lurchers at some point, or Sulfur Vents as well has Waste Lurchers. Ramparts. There's a bunch of different maps that I'm running now. And that's really good, and I want to see them use other systems to encourage that. You know, divination cards are a great way of doing that. Maybe get some crappy maps like Malformation. Actually does have a decent one. It has the one that gives a T15 map corrupted or something. Like, it's not really worth target farming for, but it's okay. Maybe we could give it the Hunger Div card.
You know? That's something that normalizes over time, no? Like, do you run these maps shaped now because you're utilizing the recipe, or are you selling it?
I've been selling it, which would normalize over time. But you know, you could very well run them to collect the beasts to make the recipe as well.
Yeah.
That specific recipe I wouldn't use too often because it is the imprint of magic item. But you know, maybe the one for Reef making some Harbinger orbs wouldn't go amiss.
Estuary is the one for me. I've been getting wolves and I've been crafting talismans with that. I forgot to mention that shaped estuary. Lots of wolves. It's like 80% or 90% of the maps that I run on Estuary, they have wolves in them, and all you need is rares for T3s, and then there's a few specific mod ones where three different specific mod wolves will actually make a unique one, which the only really relevant one is like Blightwell, which is ridiculous, by the way, if you use it properly, but
Eyes of the Grey Wolf is insane.
Yeah, but Blightwell's like
that?
you put that on a CI build and it's like your CI build is unkillable. Also, Uber, can you please use the proper name, which is Chestuary?
It's actually called Bestuary.
Oh, sorry, Amy.
Better than the Restuary?
Oh no.
Oh god.
We can keep going, I believe.
Even
let's give this a Restuary and let's move on to something else, okay? So, as you were saying before I interrupted you, sir.
Lighthouse, I think, has more chests, so we can't call it Chestuary now.
No way.
I actually think it does.
Oh.
It does have a SQA.
Ghetto's pretty good for that too. Like that's a bit of an aside, but Ghetto's pretty strong for the chest game.
The other thing
Okay,
is
now.
about cards. Really quick before we move on, is like Caldera was one map that it used to be called Abyss until we had Abyss League. Caldera was one map that I always really liked, and I ran it during Abyss League, and I'm just like, where are the mobs? And I'm kind of like concerned because I almost feel like they almost balanced it around the fact that it drops both the Combs cards and the Empower 4 card, which by the way I've never found even though I ran tons of them. It's really weird. And then also, if there's two red maps that really stand out for density right now, Defiled Temple and Crimson Temple. Those two maps are fantastic, and they're normal reds.
Yep.
Is it Waggle I see running that a lot? I think I can't remember who it is. It's either like Waggle or you or someone, but I constantly see running the temple maps, and people are like, why are you running this? He's like, it's actually really good, mate.
Yeah. It's like one of the best maps overall, I think, even if you consider shaped maps, honestly. It's
I'm
really good.
trying to think of some other natural red maps that have like comparable density, and I'm a little worried that I can't
Park?
immediately come up with one.
Park, Desert Spring, Summit is really good as well.
Yeah,
in my
Summit.
opinion.
Summit's quite nice.
I
Oh,
did
yeah.
a lot of Park last week. That felt good.
I want that as
The
a
bosses are
hideout.
bad though. They're really bad.
Yeah.
Oh, Desert Spring boss.
Yikes.
we
Yeah,
heard you
Aberrath-
like phases.
Ooh.
We heard you like phases, so we're gonna have this boss. His immunity phase takes like a minute. By the way, you have to capture 2 beasts to finish your bestiary in that map. Just wanted to point that out.
Raiz, do you want to remind us about your wonderful death in that map that you had this week, by the way?
Yeah, the boss hits hard. Don't run it with map mods. I like never did it, so I just ran it with like a bunch of map mods. Yeah, it hits hard. Did that map always have the 2 unique like scorpion things in the middle, or did they
I don't
just
think
like...
so.
No, they added that in the last patch.
So that's the funny part. That's what I thought. But it's like everybody's got a problem with this map. We're addressing it, guys. They added 2 unique mobs to it and like don't drop shit. It's like I don't think this is gonna fix it.
Hey, at
And then-
least it doesn't get stuck in the wall anymore. That's what happened when I tried to get my poison thing last league. Got
Yeah.
stuck in the frickin' wall, and then I didn't get my unlock for it. So I'm like, well.
Nice.
You hit a bit of a wall.
Oh, fucking hell. Right, okay, so, if you're
out.
happy moving
Bye.
on, Elder RNG. Grim, I know you feel very passionately about the Elder RNG. Do you want to talk about the wall that you run into spawning that boss?
Oh boy. Yeah, basically, you need to hit Elder on the tier 15 map to get the last memory fragment, and it's basically completely random on the red maps that you have. I mean, it's meant to spawn him on a high tier red map, right? But that's not the reality of it. Apparently, there's some strategy to do it like 100% of the time, but I tried that and that didn't work either. So, you know, I think I've
It's
had,
not
like,
100%.
yeah, well, whatever. I've tried like
Can
30
you
times to
explain?
get that damn orb.
Can
Can
you-
I explain it? So
Yeah.
basically, you're meant to like run a low map and then swap straight over to tier 15 maps, and then Elder's meant to spawn on there.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, he sort of has a habit of.
Oh, you think you got a different way to explain it, Uber?
What? So if you're talking about are you talking about the zone spawn or where Elder actually spawns with his guardians?
The influence.
Okay, the influence spawns. Like whenever Elder's influence decides to respawn, it spawns based off the tier of map that you're running.
Right.
So-
Yeah, that's what I thought, but I don't know. I've had
Well, the
some
So
last
if
map
you're
that
trying-
you ran. So if you
Yeah.
ran a tier 8, then it's going to spawn on a tier 8, no matter what.
Yep.
If it was the
I-
last one before the spawning.
I think shaped maps use their base map version, but I'm not 100% on that. I can't remember
They do.
because okay, they do. Then yeah. But what
I'm
you
trying
can
to
do with that is so the left side has more T15 maps, so you have better chance with that, right? So
the Khmer Hydra strategy. I've been doing that, but you know.
well, what people are starting to do now is since Elder favors spawning on higher tier maps now, they only get that top section, the top section where there's 2 T15s. they get Elder Influence on like 6 maps over there, and then they fill out the entire rest of the section with just yellow maps. And apparently that's been what's working the best, because there's so few spawns for Elder when he decides to spawn on a red, and apparently he doesn't really spawn on yellows when doing that. I'm gonna try that myself.
Right.
Yeah.
The problem with that is that you still have like the connector red, right? So you can spawn on any of the red maps really, because obviously there's 5 guardians, right? And he can spawn in any one of the 5 like locations that the guardians him are populating. So it's still like a 1 in 5 shot every time. And if you just get that unlucky, yeah.
I mean, a 1 in 5 is
It's
maybe
actually
the best
a 2
you'll
in
get with that.
It's actually more like a maybe 2 in 6, because you're getting 2 T15s in the top, and then you're getting 14, 13, 12, 11. So
Yeah.
it's
I don't
more
know,
like
I
a 1
didn't
in
get
3.
it. I've been doing the yellow and red strat, which is actually interesting, because if you're trying to set up an Elder Ring, you can actually do the point where you want to do the break with the Guardians in 3 red maps, and you'll always get it. That's an interesting one.
Yeah, the Elder Rings with once you have 15 out of 15, you can do some really crazy Elder Rings through red maps, and it's actually pretty easy to set up.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it needs to be changed. And also, I think with setting up the ring, I think there should be some sort of protection from Shaper just wrecking your ring if you're trying to do one around the Atlas. Like that's a bit of a rough one, not gonna lie.
Well,
I disagree actually on that.
it's
Really?
I think
sort
that
of.
should be hard.
I think the ring maybe wasn't an intended result of the system. So the fact that there's not like a protection for setting one up is obviously not going to be the case. It's sort of the result of taking a system and pushing it to its extreme. Like the 30 maximum limit for maps was probably just. I mean, I don't want to say it's a number they pulled out of their ass. There was some testing involved, but it's not a number that was used specifically because that allows you to put a ring around the Atlas. It's just,
Yeah,
happened to be the
right.
number they
30,
settled.
30 was actually a technical limitation, because it actually used to, if I remember correctly, it actually used to not be capped at 30. What would happen is like weird things would start happening around like 26, and then some people I think managed to press it on to like 35 or something, but it would like get really, really buggy. Sometimes it would result in crashes, and I'm pretty sure the 30 was just a result of like a technical limitation, because crashes were happening when you went past 30.
That would be really interesting then if it didn't have this like natural soft cap, if they just let it spread as far as possible, then I wonder if they would have really like regretted that. Because imagine if you can just spread Elder Influence everywhere, and you've got permanent Elder Influence on the entirety of the Atlas, and you can't remove it because Shaper has nowhere to spawn, right?
Well,
So,
if you run
imagine
the
they
map,
really
it's gonna
did
go
like
away.
that. What's up?
If you run it, it's gonna go away. If it's not like a straight out ring, but like
Yeah.
Oh, I guess, yeah.
you could probably make like a 50 long ring somehow, and like use that.
See, I'm really curious if it's someone like Neon who's in charge, if there's like one really like glowy brain dude who's like purposely setting this shit up, like Carve is gonna be really hyped in 8 leagues when he works this out. Or if it's this one intern who's managed to like accidentally invent like one of the most complicated systems in video games, and like every time they try and address it, then someone opens up something else, and it's just like this never ending fucking shifting malaise of OP.
Oh,
I
I
really
can
wish
guarantee you.
TGG would just like come out and just say, yeah, 16 blocking wasn't intended. Yeah, Elder Rings weren't intended. Yeah, this came from that. Like they've admitted stuff like that in the past where they were just like, yeah, this was a happy accident, and it feels like these happy accidents happen like pretty frequently in recent times. So it's almost as if they're not accidents, but I mean, would they
Tinfoil
really say
hat.
that they did it?
I
I
mean,
mean-
they did hint when they released Sextants. They're like, what, you can actually do like a lot of cool things, and they kind of like hint. I remember them like kind of hinting at sextant blocking being possible. So I'm pretty sure they were aware of that. With the Elder stuff, I don't think they were aware. I don't think they had enough time to test and stuff. Like everything recently that's become a problematic thing has pretty much seemed like it was a result of like a lack of time and stuff. And I remember like actually talking to somebody, and they're like, "Yeah, we just need, more time to like flesh this out. It's, kind of like a system that just got finished, and it's gonna get better with fine tuning, but
Right.
I think going back to the Elder RNG question, if you look at it like from the point of view of not someone who has 5 hours to spend it on Elder Ring, but just as someone who's just trying to interact with Elder, the kind of angle I was coming at with the I'll call it a grace period, right? Like when you do a map right, and Shaper can actually take back the map that you're trying to progress on and cut off like a massive amount of Elder influence you've got. Like that just feels really bad. I don't think that should be allowed when it can take like an hour to spread like 19 maps of Elder influence. You're on the last one and then you lose half of it. Like, are you
Oh,
kidding?
Yeah.
dude, the worst is that Shaper can take 2 maps at once. And so like
Yeah.
if you're trying to do the bottom section, like from Minotaur to Chimera, like there's no way to consistently stop it from taking over like your bottom section. Like
I mean-
somebody in my chat was like trying to do it, and it took him 2 days just to spawn a red elder because Shaper kept taking 2 maps at once, and then you had to gamble on fixing like keeping that map safe wherever it could get cut off, and then the other one would get cut off instead. So it just kept going over and over and over and over again.
Yeah, but that's
Until
like
they finally got
unlikely, no?
It's not like entirely likely, but it happens sometimes where
Yeah.
where Shaper takes over 2 maps at once.
I think if you analyze the problem, right? Like, what are the problems here? Like, for starters, they've gated one of the coolest items in the game, the Elder Orb, behind RNG, which is the 215 fragment. They've stuck a sextant behind the RNG, which as well. And like a lot of the massive end game that they brought in this patch is behind RNG as well. Like that was like most of the content for this patch, and all of it's behind an RNG wall. Like I don't know if you guys seen on Reddit, that guy, he's completed the challenge and he still doesn't have T15 memory fragment, like the 150 Elder and Guardian kills. He's done that.
I think for a lot of people, particularly people who invest tons and tons of hours into Path of Exile, it's not going to be a problem with the amount of grinding that you have to do, but with the fact that the grinding is unforeseeable and how much grinding you will have to do. There's no guarantee at any point that you won't have to just start over from scratch, which feels really shitty. Like there are plenty of people who go for level 100, which is a huge grind, who go for 40 challenges, which can be a big grind. It's depending on what sort of person you are and how much Path you've played in the past. These can all be varying levels of huge grind, but how many Adzeris you've done. You know how many more Adzeris you gotta kill. You know how much XP you have. You know how much more XP you gotta earn. With trying to get the with trying to get the Uber Elder Orb, or whatever the in-game name is, you don't know when it's gonna happen or if it's gonna happen, and you have to just keep trying and praying and attempting to find some way to make it happen faster.
The worst part for me is that it takes so long. Like you can get really unlucky with T15 Elder, and then once you have that 15th memory fragment, it's so easy to spawn Uber Elder. It's so easy to the point that you can spawn a Red Elder and then not even do the Red Elder. You can get all the Guardian maps on Elder Influence, and Uber Elder will literally replace your Red Elder.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's
I
deflating.
think, Grim, you summarized your complaint with it really well when we were talking the other day, where you were basically saying that one of the main things you dislike about the system is the kinds of players who are most interested in having tier 16 maps are the people like you, the people like Cute Dog, who just chain maps all day, every day, and the people who are doing Uber Elder generally are the people who enjoy boss farming. So it's like you have the boss farmers who are farming bosses to then get, as Uber says, easier spawns to it, but then this main mapping thing for the guys who like to just live in maps all day. It's like you've separated. It's like back in WoW, and to complete like your legendary ring, you had to do PvP, and the PvP is like, dude, what the hell, and vice versa. It seems a bit backwards.
Exactly. I think, that's exactly right. The hilarious thing is, like, so let's look at the rewards, right? not the unique rewards, but like just the rewards. So you got the Uber Elder Orb or whatever, and the Sextant, right? That's for mappers like me who don't really do like doing bosses or anything like that, and it's completely locked. You can't get carried through it or anything, or pay the boss killers. And then the boss killers have no interest really in the Sextant because they're doing like the boss maps, like Minotaur and stuff. And then the Uber Elder Orb is completely irrelevant because that dilutes your Guardian drop pool, which is going to stop you farming more bosses. So like it's like the rewards are completely just out of whack.
I never realized how muddled that was. That is a very good point. That how would you go about fixing that though? Like what would you suggest be the break point for getting the T16 shaping orb?
Yeah, okay, so here's what I would do, right? Okay, so Uber Elder, right? Like, the uniques are pretty much, in the softcore right now, garbage, right? Void Forge is, for all intensive purposes, worse than Starforge in a lot of reasons. And the only really good one is Intergon and the Staff, right? Maybe you guys like Void Forge. I don't know. Who cares? The point is, the drops aren't that great, and the people farming it, like I've got a lot of friends who farm like 50, and they're not making that much currency. So if you introduce carries, so people can carry like me, like I don't really want to kill Uber Elder, but I'll pay someone 5 exalts for the kill, right? They're making consistent currency then off doing it, which is rewarding for them. I'm able to get the stuff I want by paying them the currency I made, and then everyone wins, right?
Sure. Yeah, I mean it's a pretty simple fix. I thought you would want to move the shaping orb somewhere else, but just letting someone carry you. No, it
Yeah,
makes. I mean, that does still leave the problem in place for solo self-found though. Not that many solo self-found players get up to Uber Elder, but it is still
Fuck
a
'em.
part of the game.
I mean,
Fuck him, dude. Don't balance
you
the
can't-
game around SSF.
yeah, don't. I agree. Don't balance it.
I mean,
SSF.
one thing you can do to balance the game around SSF, make fucking Tinkerskin more common. Holy shit, fucking item, man.
I feel like you've got a personal.
Dude,
angle here.
we're just gonna take this little soapbox side thing. Why is Tinkerskin so goddamn rare? Like,
It's
because
not,
fuck
dude.
you.
I got like literally 6 yesterday,
No.
and every time I dropped, I got
No.
angry as fuck because I need a Impulsas.
Impulsor is badass.
Literally
I want
6
an
of
Impulsor.
them.
I want an Impulsor.
You got 6?
Tinkerskin, dude.
I got like
man.
6 yesterday. Just yesterday.
I thought you were exaggerating just to make Tarke angry.
No. Actually, in like
I've gotten
4 hours.
I've gotten 0 Tinkerskins and 1 Impulses.
I've
far.
rendered them like fucking candy, dude. No problem.
I also have 2 Vinctors at this point. So
Nice.
So we were talking about Elder. Oh, how about if we put Tinkerskin on Uber Elder's loot table? It still drops, but then also drops from Uber Elder. I will then be SSF Uber Elder God. I'll be fucking living in that Uber Elder. Esfix. Right, sorry. So we were talking about.
I'm waiting for like Tarke to realize, oh my god, I have 12 body armor beast crafts I can do, and he just gets the Tinkerskin from it.
Oh, dude, I've been doing them and it's not happening. But yeah.
Hey, Tarke, I heard you played mostly traps. You're like the trap guy now, right? How many saboteurs have you played?
I'm on my 3rd trapper this league.
Yeah, but how many saboteurs?
This league 3.
Wait, you
Yeah,
all
but
3
how
did
gay are-
saboteur?
Yeah, all 3 trappers have been Sab. I know that Scion's also really good. I played in an Inquisitor trapper last league, but
Don't you know that saboteur is a noob trap, dude? What are you doing?
Sab is if you have access
Oh,
to
actually, never
Tinkerskin,
mind.
I would rather play Inquiz than Sab. But when you don't have it and you don't have access to the CD reduction and all that other stuff, yeah, Sab is amazing. Sab CI is really good as well. Like I think is it Wins who was doing the CI low life Scion, and he was going Guardian and Sabo Ascendancy, so he has up to 20% regen. Then every 5 seconds he like full heals. It like CI with that regen is so good, so good.
Yeah, but are they gay?
Potentially,
No.
potentially. And yeah, CI low life, by the way. That's the secret meta. Like that's why CI is good. You go CI low life SFX.
One is very low.
So Watcher's Eye RNG is a thing apparently.
I think that's good RNG.
Ugh.
Yeah,
Um,
actually,
Yikes.
I'm in agreement with Uber on that. I am very happy that there's another like really cool chase unique in the game, and also that it's one that's so integratable into a lot of different builds. I don't know. I don't really like the Headhunter syndrome, where just every build throws Headhunter on in softcore in the end game and goes super fast. But Watcher's Eye are at least variable, and so every build throwing on a Watcher's Eye doesn't feel quite as bad because each Watcher's Eye is different and special, like a fancy little snowflake.
I think one thing about Watcher's Eye, I wonder what would like Watcher's Eye is a very interesting item because it's one of those things where it's like I wonder what would happen if they added more like kind of like rolls. They're not like godlike rolls, but they're kind of and they're somewhat useful for some builds. But then they like, or maybe even more like a few bad rolls or whatever, and then they just made it more common. Like it really makes me wonder what can you like actually do with that in terms of like drop rates and all of that, and make it more interesting because like every single jewel that drops, it's like when you get a ring in Diablo 2. You don't know what it is. It could be an SOJ. It could be just another Monald heal. But you don't know until you identify it. It's actually a really cool item in that aspect.
I actually hate Watcher's Eye. I think it's a disaster. I'll be the other side of the argument here. I think it's really annoying because like I have a Watcher's Eye I want for my build, right? And it doesn't exist. Like I can't buy it off anyone. Like it hasn't dropped yet or been created. And I think that because I play on softcore, there's tons more Watcher's Eyes being created. Like it must be even worse on hardcore, right? Like if you want like I want a Grace one, right? And there's no Grace 2 mod or 3 mod Watcher's Eyes. This just doesn't exist. So it's kind of annoying, and I can't farm it myself either, like I can with a headhunter.
I mean, that kind of comes down to like player perception though, because some people really like that unique feeling, and again, it comes down to like, do you prefer the hardcore market or do you prefer the softcore market? Like, I was looking at a few Watcher's Eyes last league, for specific builds, and yeah, it's just like it's one of those things that some people like that very mercantile nature of at the time, like Wrath, Leech. One might be really cheap, so you manage to snipe it up, and other people are like, oh no, I want guaranteed 3 prop Grace Jewels, and then when you do that, then they become generally more expensive because they're more obviously powerful or whatever.
Well, it's not that it's more expensive, it just doesn't exist. Like, I'd drop 100x on it, I don't care, but like, it's just not created because it's so unlikely. Like, it's
yeah, but doesn't that make it more rewarding when you do finally get it though? Like, that's for, like, the actual standard player. Like, the actual fully 100 mirror build, like, yes, with the perfect triple Watcher's Eye. It's like, I see it kind of like how you see the Ventors, when people post the perfect Ventors. You know, it's like, that's kind of what it should be, in my opinion.
I think it's more complicated than the Ventors. Like, it's kind of like finding that perfect Elder item for your build. Like, so, like, you want +1 gems, Fizz reduction, and then Fizz taken as element or something on your chest. So you like that kind of stuff is really rare, and Watcher's Eye is kind of like a really good rare item. And so getting a good 2 prop or 3 prop Watcher's Eye is really rare, and I think that's pretty cool because there's not a lot of uniques like that.
Yeah,
I guess, yeah.
And it gives you something to shoot for. Maybe Watcher's Eye isn't the best example because it's kind of hard to deterministically go for a certain Watcher's Eye, but the Elder gear and the Shaper gear I think is a huge victory, honestly, for Path. We've been talking a lot about bestiary and that sort of thing and kind of being a bit negative, but I honestly think that Shaper and Elder items are some of the coolest things they've added to the game recently. Some of them are maybe a bit too strong. Getting like 100% Fizz as extra on a single slot is kind of stupid. But like I have a build this link that's using minion instability, and the ideal item for me to put my Raiz Spectre into would be a helmet with minion life, conk effect, and minion damage, and then also specifically an unearth enchant. And it's so cool when you start like digging down into having that one GG item to hunt for. To me that's what I really enjoy doing at the end game.
I think this also kind of comes down to kind of where you fall as a player. So, like, I definitely fall in someone who used to be attracted to Path of Exile because of the build-making capabilities. And then, as we've seen less reworks to passive skill tree changes, and we will have skill reworks coming, I then found it harder and harder to kind of get that enjoyability. Then, since I've gone to SSF, I've kind of had that back again, because it's kind of like, how do I make a build around what's given to me, rather than what do I do to fit my perfect build? And I remember Grim when we were talking yesterday, you were kind of like, I don't even care what I'm playing. You literally said, I don't give a shit what I'm playing. It's all the same. I just want to like min max the loot. So I think that's just a case where, it's where do you come down as a player.
I mean, yeah, like Raiz will know exactly what I'm talking about as well. You don't turn up to a drag race in like a Volkswagen, right? You got to pick the best car to go fastest, right? Otherwise, you're just not going to compete, right?
I mean, I get where you're coming from, but I don't have that mentality at all.
Oh, really? That's
Yeah,
I mean,
I
Ziz
don't-
does, right? He plays Ballspark.
Yeah,
Every single time he
this
could.
definitely does. I don't. I don't know. I definitely there's like Volfire when Volfireball and Volspark were super meta. I just couldn't play that shit because I fucking hated it, and that was it. But they were like 3 times better than any other build. So yeah. But I get where you're coming from, of course.
Just a little note there, like someone posted me the calculations they did on Watcher's Eye. It's 1 in 57,000 to get a 3-mod Watcher's Eye with the right stuff. So
60,000?
57,000, yeah, 1 in 57,000.
That's not so bad.
I mean, that's only like 2 runs for Ziz. So to be honest, I think it's fine. I think it's fine as is.
True, yeah.
Yeah, just get the undisputed best Watcher's Eye in the game.
As
Undisputed, by the way.
I mean, I'm fine with that sort of stuff as long as it's not like build enabling, which I don't think it is. It's just better for your build, right? It makes your build better, but it doesn't like enable you to play something else.
Yeah, I mean, I think
it's
almost any build in the game can just use a rare jewel in that slot, except for, I mean, there are certain affixes on Watcher's Eyes that can be really strong, but I don't think there's any particular combination, like really strong for making a build work.
Right.
I've played a few builds. I played a Firestorm build last league that used the Vitality Watcher's Eye to get life gain on hit, and then the mod on Shaper Rings to get life gain on hit, and it was just a life gain on hit face tank. And the build wouldn't have worked without that Watcher's Eye. It was like half of my recovery. But that's just a single mod, so it was pretty easy to get.
Yeah,
I think it's better to have the extreme RNG and rarity on something like Watcher's Eye than something like the fucking Golem jewels. Like that's an example where why do you have this level of stupid RNG? Because it's like if you want to play this build, you have to have this fucking thing. Whereas for the specific life recovery shenanigans, as you say, it's kind of like, well, I could make do with getting that one vitality mod and then some random clarity stuff I can't use. Ideally, you'd have the triple vitality, but oh well,
It's actually literally exactly what I did.
Exactly. See, I
used
know
level
you
1
too
clarity.
well. Yeah, exactly.
I think the problem with it is, sorry to cut you off. I think the problem, just to finish this up from me, is that if I want a +1 Wind Ripper, I can just buy 40 Wind Rippers and ball them. If I want a Headhunter, I can farm the Headhunter. If I want to do any of that, like a +1 chest, I can do that myself. The fact that Watcher's Eye is you can farm 57,000 Uber Elders and get none, right? Come on, that sucks a little bit.
I mean, you could chance 57,000 leather belts and Nemesis maps and not get a Headhunter, so...
I mean, I guess, but I'd use Doctors more as an example. You can farm those, right?
You could do 57,000 burial chambers and not get a doctor.
I think it's good to enable both playstyles. I think if everything is in the game is accessible, then the game does lose something. And I would much rather the game kind of keep some unobtainability. I'm always one of those people who I liked that idea. Old school World of Warcraft, what people complain about is you would go into the Orgrimmar, you would see that dude and you go, I will never have that dude's gear. That dude is a fucking badass. That's what I like in my video games. I don't like it where it's hey man, I've done my LFR Uber Elder and I've got my triple Watcher's Eye. Like this, homie, let's go. Fuck that.
Somebody mentioned that Watcher's Eye, if you want to utilize a proper 2 mod or 3 mod, really it's more so you can kind of almost look at it from an SSF perspective, and you're like, okay, this Watcher's Eye would be really cool for this build that I want to do, so maybe that exists, and it's a 2 mod, 2 different auras, Anger Discipline or something for a Whispering Ice Guardian that's Avatar of Fire, so. It's an interesting thing. The rarity of the 2 prop jewels. If you want the perfect one, yeah, it's gonna be hard to get, and it's not likely to spawn. So, and I think that's fine, really.
I just don't
But-
concern. This is why I prefer playing SSF for the most part, because I don't have to concern myself with shit like this. It's like building up the perfect character every league for 18 leagues and like getting this sort of stuff. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think it's really cool, and I know I'm pretty unique in this, but for me, yeah, I see that as a benefit. I mean, if something is that absurdly rare, I just don't concern myself about it, and if I stumbled upon it, that's great. So
Yeah.
it just
Or-
works. It works better.
Also, one
less on my
thing
mind.
that I want to ask you, Grim. So when we were talking, because I've been taking the piss out of myself a little bit with these stupid trapper builds I've been playing and how I've just been like dicking along, but I've kind of had fun doing it. And you were saying that you've actually run into a bit of the issue this week because you did get your headhunter so early, and then it's like, well, what do I do now that I've gotten the headhunter? So in that sense, having this one unobtainable fucking item where you've got to keep grinding the currency and keep checking PV trade that one day it gets listed, you can buying it. It just gives that one carrot far enough away on the stick that you then have a reason to keep playing. At least in my mind, that's kind of what I want more of, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I guess. I mean, how much money do you want me to grind, right? Like, what's the guy gonna put it up for? Like 120 exalts or something? Like, I have enough cards. I'm just waiting for it to like pop up, right?
I
That's
think
kind of
like maybe
frustrating.
like 2 Necropolis maps, or I don't know. But
There
No,
aren't.
but like whoever gets to this point, right? It's like the most triggering thing ever were the people like last league, for instance, that were farming up for Abyssco. It's like they can upgrade, they can make their build clear twice as fast for like half of the investment into Abysscos, and therefore they can like get more shit. Sure, they're not gonna get more shit per efficiency like of the map itself, right? But they can still get more shit, more like faster, but they're so hung up on this one fucking item that everybody's saying is good, and no matter what, they're gonna like farm towards it. And it's stuff like that that's like really, really triggering to me, because really nobody ever gets to the point where you're at, where you're like, you want this absolutely unreasonable thing that's like 150 exalted orbs. That's never going to happen, but if it
Oh,
does, gives you like a 2% upgrade for something that you don't really need. Like, I don't
yeah,
know.
I understand I'm the minority here, and it's ridiculous to even talk about this. I think it's just
Yeah.
fun to talk about.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's like you've got like this 500 DPS bow, and you're like, oh, but I'm really just waiting for this like 550 DPS bow that's like absolutely mirror tier, so I can mirror it, but it's not coming up, you know?
No, but it's like
Yeah.
my point is more that there's not like to bring up your bow. It's like this one has 500, and I overkill mobs 3 times over. This one has 550, so I'm gonna overkill mobs 4 times over. It's like, does this really add anything? I mean, you're gonna kill a boss like 0.3 of a second faster. Like, come on. Do we
Just get your
really-
Grace move speed, you're done. Grace
Yeah,
move speed, man.
there you go.
I think that's an interesting discussion actually, right? It's like, cause like, I mean, like a player like me, I want to play PoE like more, but like at this point, I've done pretty much everything, and I there's nothing left to do. So I think they do need some other end game systems in there to
Well-
kind of scale up the content or something, right?
That's where things possibly outside of your character come in. I mean, you could do a second character, but you've said that you have the viewpoint that it's not really your character that interests you as much as it is, the
Yeah.
grinding of the loot and the building it to the perfect point. But you could take that pursuit of perfection and put it in a different direction. You could try and craft the perfect X or Y or whatever it is. Try and craft the perfect scepter. Do mirror crafting effectively. That is the biggest currency sink that the
Yeah,
game has
but
to
like at
offer.
the end of the day, it's exactly what Raiz said. Like killing a mob, like 4 times overkill. Like that's what mirror tier items are all about, and that's what I'm doing anyway. So I think you kind of do need something in there, whether it's like, I don't know, just some sort of end game progression system, which just increases the difficulty to give you a reason to go for these OP items.
No, you said you
So-
don't
Yeah.
enjoy bossing. Maybe that's something to put your time into, because that's kind of where this sort of
If it's not-
mentality shines, right? On
If
bosses.
it's
Yeah, I mean,
not, if it's not bossing that, in terms of like an end game piece of content that's difficult, then it would just be progressively harder mapping, right?
yeah.
Effectively, like more and more challenging
Diablo
mobs in map.
3.
In which
Greater
case,
rift.
exactly.
Hell yeah.
That's what we're coming up on at that point is greater rifts. And
Oh no.
I mean, I'm not a big fan of the game, but it does sound like that's the system that would support that.
Yeah.
There's
why
been
is there-
talk of whether or not there's a place in Path for that sort of thing, and before, Maelstrom, the endless Maelstrom, whatever it was.
Actually, the
Maelstrom of
Chinese
Chaos.
realms have that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I was gonna say.
The Chinese realms have something like that. It's basically like a survival mode, kind of like if you play Grim Dawn. What's it called?
Crucible.
Crucible, yeah, where it just keeps going up and up. The difficulty keeps ramping up, and you go as far as your character can take you. And if you die, you're done. But if you keep upgrading your gear, you can keep going up in tiers for. I think in Crucible it's actually endless, right? You get to like the
No.
boss. Oh, okay.
There's the maximum right now is wave 170 with the expansion,
Yeah.
and it's pretty nuts. I'll tell you that. They had to like nerf the LA on the mobs, but
Yeah, I mean,
So
like-
that would be cool
like,
because that is in the game, just on the Chinese realms where people get as
Yeah,
high as possible
mean-
as like a side of mini game type of thing.
yeah, they
If
have
you
like
look
an event, don't they? Like a sort of like how many bosses can you do or how fast you can do.
Yeah,
do
they
all
have
these
like
bosses.
separate events for this and everything. Yeah, it's like a big
Yeah.
speedrun.
I think there's two ways you could approach retention in endgame and stuff like that. You can do like in endless waves or something like that, which is probably more suited to me. Or you could do the races, which you guys are probably more interested in, like you and Raiz and stuff like that.
Yes,
But
please.
I do think, yeah, races and stuff. But I'm not a big racer, so I'm on the other kind of side of things. But I do think they need to upgrade the end game kind of progression system or something like that, because we saw it with Abyss, the fall off around month 2 and stuff, even from the streamers who it's kind of almost they're obligated to play, is massive. So they need to make a change there, I think.
I mean, I think a lot of that segues really well into the skill talk discussion, which we'll probably go into. But I think for me personally, the reason why I got pretty bored with Abyss was it's kind of like we had this whole new system, but the meta was exactly the fucking same. It was just the same builds were just better now. And so for me personally, that was kind of one of those things, which was like, oh yay, new league, what am I doing? Oh, I'm doing the exact same thing I did
But
last week.
just to jump back to the Diablo 3 mentality, I think the issue that a lot of people have with Greater Rifts in Diablo 3 is that is the core game. But if you were to implement a side system like this to Path of Exile, I feel like that actually could be beneficial, because then you don't have to build around it in any way, but people have an out, an endless out, the way they want to, right? But it's not the core game, and you don't have to put that much effort into it.
And I mean,
That's true.
people are already taking builds and pushing them to their limit in terms of clear speed. If you put a clearly defined space in the game where that is the goal, unequivocally, then you're going to see people take that to an even further extreme. You'll see auto bombers going at 300% movement speed in a straight line, basically, and just taking that and min-maxing it to the ultimate degree. I think the worry might be balancing it against mapping and against bossing and against all these other systems. There's so many systems already in the game. You'd want to have some sort of reward. Otherwise it wouldn't feel good. Maybe the reward would just be a leaderboard.
Yeah, exactly. I think, imagine if I could come up on a leaderboard against you, Octavian. I would fight you for #1. Let's go, dude.
You'd probably win. I'm playing shield throw.
Oh god. But I think
It's over already.
That's also a system which the game's probably more willing to go towards now, because the game is now much more softcore orientated. You would never have an endless system in PoE 3 years ago, because the constant question would be well, if it's endless until you die, then what happens when I die? Right?
Yeah,
die in real life.
you'd make it doable
Yeah.
PvP, right? If you're hardcore, you should be able to compete on the same ladder as softcore.
Well, it depends how you optimize it, right? Because somebody brought up a counter argument to what I said earlier about how you're overkilling 4 times over, right? But I mean, in a system like this, it's not just a matter if you do have that 550 DPS bow instead of the 500 DPS bow, yeah, in normal content you'd be overkilling, but in this content you can invest this damage into defenses that would also benefit you in this mod, right? Because you actually have to stay alive. So even though you're playing on softcore, you'd have to have a more balanced out character rather than just a glass cannon type of thing. Or you would just glass cannon it up to the maximum and then just run it over and over and over and over and over until one time you don't die and you get that record run. It could also work like that, but yeah.
It'd be a
I mean,
great
yeah.
way to recycle some old content too. You know, you can have it rotate as you go through the zones. Like this zone is Abyss, and there's 5 of them in here, and and you have to complete them all or something. And
Yeah.
this zone has 16 invasion bosses or whatever.
It's
Basically, what they do with
kinda like,
races, but all the time.
yeah,
Yep.
it's like a hot queuable race, but it's in the game permanently, right? So you can kind of join whenever.
So
This is all very nice. I would like to
So
see it.
one thing I wanted to add to the like whole gear thing is it's one of the reasons why I had a problem with the XP nerfs is because after a certain point, like after a certain level, if you're really committing to getting 100, you're just not upgrading your gear anymore. Like, and just nerfing XP in the amount that they didn't really help because it's like, well, okay, now I'm gonna like stop looking for gear upgrades at like 98, and it's just gonna be straight grind for 2 more levels. Yay. But like one of the things I love in this game is like progressing your gear and making it better. Like, yeah, sure, it might not help much, but it might help on bosses or it might help your survivability enough. And you know, there's always those clips and situations where somebody drops to like double-digit health and it's like, oh god, what if I didn't have that life node that I just got? Or what if I didn't have that 49 life Abyssal that I just upgraded from a 30 life?
Yeah, what you're talking about though is hard content, and that's the reason you need the gear. And currently, I
Yeah.
think that they're lacking a little bit of hard content, and the hard content that they just put in is like not really that accessible, right?
Well, it's not
I
so
think-
much that, but it boils back down to the Atlas situation of there is hard content, but it's not overly accessible, and generally it's more rewarding to do the tier 1 map or the shaped map, so then you're not having people... Like, the way they change damage to scale, if you're doing, like, juiced up damage mods in, like, tier 15s, that shit's fucking difficult, man. Like, I was doing Poor Joys, and I know Poor Joys is an easy map, but I met Red Beast, and my champion just got straight one-shot. Like,
Yeah.
what made it even scarier is it was a extra damage, extra fire damage Red Beast in a Poor Joys. It did the rower charge, and I was just gone. But what was making it really funny is when I was fighting it, I was thinking, oh, I probably shouldn't capture this because I've read all these threads about people getting one shot in their menagerie by these Poor Joy. And I'm like, oh, I'm dead. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Oh,
Ouch.
try shield charging into the red porcupine in that map, which spawns a whole bunch of porcupines alongside it. 150% monster damage. Have fun with that. Cute
It's-
Dog, I was watching Cute Dog and he's like, dude, let me try a Poor Joys. And then he runs into the first Poor Joys he runs, he gets the red porcupine, shield charge just straight into it, drops to like 500 ES, and he's like, oh god, dude, I'm done with this map.
Yeah.
Because he's like trying to grind 100.
It's about not just having the challenge, but having the incentive behind it. You know, you can't just put the difficult thing that the player's supposed to fight and have fun fighting into your game, and then expect them to go find that by themselves and fight it for nothing. You know, you put incentive systems into your game to encourage players to go towards the content that they'll have fun doing, and that's why Shaper drops Starforge, because they want you to fight Shaper because the Shaper fight took them a lot of time and effort to make, and it is fun and it is cool to learn and all that. So, you know, you can kind of take that and apply it to any of the content in the game. And if farming a shaped T8 map is going to make you all the money that you need for the whole league, and you can do it by slamming your face into your keyboard repeatedly, then that's what some people are going to do, even if they hate it, even if they think it's horrible and they don't like it and they don't want to do it. They want to get the currency, so they'll do the thing that gives them the currency. Even if there's another thing they could do that's 10% slower and a lot more fun, they'll still go do the grind.
Players always go for the path of least resistance. I always bring up chest runs in Diablo as the perfect system. Like, that is the like absolute epitome of, oh, I get the most currency an hour going to this waypoint and opening a chest and leaving. When I was farming my Chinsol card, I actually noticed that in Torch Courts, you can chain reset the door, and there will always be like 5 to 6 chests in the first room and there are no mobs. And in my head I was thinking, hang on, would it be more efficient for you to chain farm reset this back and forth rather than clearing it to get the Chinsol cards per hour? And then I was like, no, let's just kill the mobs. Let's just kill the mobs. I don't want to go back to Diablo 3.
I mean, I've done that. This league, I've been experimenting with how profitable farming prophecies is, and I realized one day that I had spent 2.5 hours sitting in my hideout clicking Seal Prophecy and Seek Prophecy over and over again, and I fucking hated myself for it because it made me currency, but I wasn't playing Path of Exile. I was playing Talk to Navali.
Which is why I hate a Prophecy League.
Hmm.
In all honesty, with the whole boss situation, I feel like so many of these bosses are like, we're at a situation in the game where the power creep has led us to. They keep there's another problem with GGG that I have, and it's that they keep buffing monster damage and they keep making these like high damage hits and all of that. Can we just like buff monster life or something? Like, we're getting to a point where the gear progression, it probably doesn't need to get improved, really. It's that we need reason to improve our gear because mob life is too low. And boss life even is too low in some cases of the end game bosses. I'm not talking about map bosses, don't get mad at me, please. But, like, mob life and the end game boss life is just too low. Like, you could probably make Uber Elder harder just by making it more of a gauntlet. Like, you have to go through the first 2 Shaper phases, and then Elder shows up and he's like, hey, what up? I'm gonna take Shaper.
I also think I really agree on that health thing, but also a lot of this comes down to accessibility, and this is a big like trade league thing. So a good example is before this league, I never did it zero because there was no reason for me to do it zero, because if I wanted to knit Zero's Promise, I could buy one for 1 chaos and it was super easy. And because I only play hardcore, it was one of those things of, oh yeah, there's this fight, like back in the day it used to be scary, now it's just like you go in and one shot it on like a 2-link Sunder. But like back in the day it was like, okay, I want this, and then because I don't play Cyclone, I've never wanted a Disfavor. So like if I was playing a Cyclone, then maybe I'd be like, oh, maybe I'll go do like Uber at Zero or whatever. But because I've been playing SSF this league, and I was like, oh, and Zero's Promise would be really good for my build. Oh, I guess I may as well just go do a few Zero runs. I just like knocked out like 5 Zero runs in an hour. I was like, oh, that was kind of fun. Maybe I should do more of this content. And like for a lot of things, it's like, yeah, you introduce this crazy new boss fight, and if you're just like random pleb playing Trade League, and this whole thing of like spawning the specific Uber Elder seems super intimidating, and then you go on to Pee-wee Trade, and as Grim says, you can apparently buy the sword for like 10C or 20C or whatever. Then you go.
No, it's 7x, but I was just comparing it to
Okay. Well, then maybe for 7X, I'd be like, oh, I might go do the boss fight. But yeah, it's just like.
David Brevik was right all along. We need soulbound items. It's the only
I think that's a huge part of the reason why Solo Self-Found has been gaining in popularity, though, is because it takes a lot of the incentives already in the game to go and, you know, have fun and play content, and makes them, you know, barriers you can't just pass by farming a shaped map for an hour. And then the player is forced to go have fun instead of click mobs with Sunder for 20 minutes or whatever.
I mean, I'm assuming you're talking about me here. Like
No, it was not.
Whoa, shots.
I'm talking about the general mentality in the game that if you're not farming the most efficient thing, then you're farming the wrong thing.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
it's the
right, yeah.
player mentality. I don't think that's the mentality of the game. That's the
No, the mentality in the player base of the game. I maybe should have specified.
Look, I'll have you know, Octavian, that if you're not farming burial chambers right now, you're a worthless cock, and I'm going to spend the next 27 hours telling you
God.
that every build you're doing is inefficient, but at the same time, I can't sustain alks because I'm never actually playing the game, because I'm just on Reddit telling people their builds are bad because, oh my god, Blowfire, I can't even one-phase this boss, noob.
I'm just gonna be on Reddit looking at new and just like upvoting every single thread that says the league is bad or there's a bug with the league or whatever, and just like not even reading it. It just says the league is bad.
How did we get so angry? What's going on?
So,
Shut up.
so
Skill reworks.
Skill reworks, guys. How do you feel about the proposed skill reworks? I know that I was pretty salty about it. How did you guys react to it? Also, I want to ask, before we get into it, have any of you experimented with medium range Ice Spear boss killers?
I've actually played Ice Spear. Yeah, that's an interesting one.
I mean,
Back when Freeze Prolif was a thing.
yeah, I played a lot of
I
Ice
don't
Spear
I don't think we were meant to give serious answers.
I mean,
Actually,
overall, it is
Invalesco
aggressive.
made a really good Ice Spear totem build back in 2013. But yeah.
Dude, I remember seeing Prozon die at rank 1, level 85. That was like a month of grinding in closed beta. He was playing like Ice Spear totems and shit.
Wait, so I think are we divided on the subject though? Because I know Tarky's salty. I potentially could be salty. What's everybody else? Octavian maybe?
It's
I'm fairly neutral, honestly. There are a lot of skill changes that I really want to see happen, and I don't think the post really addressed any of them, but they did say there were a lot of other things coming up, and they didn't go into too many specifics. So I kind of want to see more information before I like have a solid opinion on it. But if something isn't done about Vortex, I'm going to be very mad.
Look at this
Because-
mature adult. I will reserve judgment until they give me actual facts.
But really though, I think every single league since I can't recall back like leagues on end now, Vortex has been accidentally or purposefully the result of the general nerfs to skills, like the double dipping changes, the AOE changes, the just so many things have murdered Vortex, and I feel so bad. But that's maybe predict too specific.
you should have seen how bad Detonate Dead was until they finally reworked the corpse skills,
Yeah.
which is another thing. Like they're already working on some of that. I feel like because like you've got the Detonate Dead thing, and obviously Detonate Dead is still not really used because, well, why wouldn't you just go Volatile Dead? It's just pretty much better, but.
Yeah.
Aesthetics.
You just summed up the whole point.
Well, yeah, the
Aesthetics.
aesthetic of DD is pretty cool, but I mean, DD's AOE was awful. The damage was awful. The scaling was like impossible, you know. And it's been bad ever since double dipping, and it only got worse with every single nerf. It's like they forgot about the skill, and then they finally reworked it, and then Volatile Dead just kind of
Yeah.
took a dump on it.
Also, for anyone who's like kind of unaware of why people would maybe be salty about skill rework, since obviously we should potentially be really hyped, my main opinion on it is after the reworks of a few skills we've seen, tendrils, in the past, it's just I'm worried that you're spending time on something which might not necessarily make much impact, and even if it does suddenly become, like, let's say that Ice Speed does become the best cold projectile skill in the future, that doesn't really do anything to actually improve the game long term. I'd much rather see something like Ancestral Call. Like, that was an example of they made this one support gem and that like completely changed the way people played melee. If they did stuff to like revisit totem AI, or they did stuff to like make mines feel better. And a lot of the time it's kind of like, oh, but Tarke, mines are really good if you play Sab and this and the other. I find it really weird that you have this play style which feels really clunky, and there's only one place of getting arming speed to make it feel not clunky.
Jules.
Yeah, I guess.
I think it's really. I think it would be really smart of them to approach the problem systemically rather than specifically like that. You know, Ancestral Call is a solution to a whole broken system of like single target melee attacks. So I agree with you entirely that that is how they should approach it. But the very fact that Ancestral Call exists means that they will do that sometimes. So I'm really hopeful that we see more Ancestral Calls and less Lightning Tendrils. But the fact that there are two examples of that in the game does mean that we could go either way.
Sorry, I wanted
think-
to correct myself. Arming speed was only on Saboteur.
Yeah.
I think the problem with these skills is they, like back in the day when I was watching you stream Rise and you were racing against Noogie and Crip and stuff, right? There was like two bow skills, right? There was like three. Lightning Arrow, Ice Shot, and what? Split Arrow, right? And each of those had
Rain of
like a
Arrows.
role. Right? Okay, well, yeah. That's
Rain of Arrows was fucking legit back in the day. Holy shit. It's like,
Come on,
100%
guys.
accuracy.
Go on, Grim. Go on, Grim. You got this. You got this.
Anyway, like everything had a position, right? But like when Uber was talking before, it's like you got Detonate Dead and you got Volatile Dead. Like they're the same thing. One's better. Like what's the point in this other one, right? Why is that there? And the problem with them reworking skills and buffing them is that they're not really solving that problem. They're just adding more and more skills that do similar things, which like one's going to be better than the other, and it's just going to be the only one used, right? So what's the point?
Like
Well,
Tectonic
for me,
Slam was
it's-
like,
It goes even further because it was like I literally was on a rant about how ridiculous it would be from like a developer hype and like for the player's point of view for them to rework abilities such as like heavy strike or elemental hit, things that are essentially like auto attacks, with like some little function, because mechanically you can only switch those skills up by addressing the group of things with a melee splash or with an ancestral call or something like that. Otherwise, you're just playing a fucking auto attack build, right? Even if you modify the numbers to be higher. And then, and then like 2 days later they're like, we're announcing reworks of skills, and I'm like, well then, okay. But then it's still weird to me because I don't understand why, if it's a matter of tweaking numbers, right, for those abilities or addressing like a whole group of abilities, I can kind of understand that. But if they're modifying, let's Ice Spear or Cold Snap, why not just add a new ability? It creates more hype, it makes it more interesting. You still have the option, if your playstyle fits that archetype or whatever, if you just enjoy playing something like Ice Spear, you can continue to play it, or if you enjoy Cold Snap, you can continue to play it. You don't remove those things from the game, and on top of it, you have a new ability that creates hype and potentially is like a balanced around ability, other than having the disappointment of a Lightning Tendrils, because reworking Lightning Tendrils, in my opinion, is a lot more disappointing than adding another skill that works like the new Lightning Tendrils, because then it's just another bad skill, but now you've taken a bad skill and you've made it another bad skill, which is even more disappointing than just adding a bad skill to me. So that's like
Well, it
my
got better.
biggest worry. Well, it got better, but it's still not really played. But in this case, yeah, I mean, it's still the same mechanic, right? It's just basically tweaked numbers. I mean, it feels the same way. It feels to play the same way. But this seems like they're trying to remake these skills into something that will feel differently than what it originally has. Like with the example that they've given with Cold Snap. You're
One
not going to play it the same way.
one argument against that would be that for the new player entering the game, having, there's already so many skills to choose
Right.
from, and some of them are just trash. Like you can't really make a Cold Snap build right now. You can maybe if you really know what you're doing, and you are okay with feeling bad about yourself, but it's definitely not doable as a
Well,
new
you
player
don't
to the game.
know.
I mean,
Right?
okay,
If
fun
you're new to
fact,
the game, you
just to
don't know if
interrupt.
Cold Snap is bad.
Cold
is true,
Snap
but-
does the same amount of damage as Frostwall. Just throwing that in there. That's always like my fun thing to example.
Yeah, but again, you don't know that. You're a
No,
new
but, like,
player. You
but this
pick
is the
Cold
thing,
Snap.
like, 'cause-
You like it or you don't like it.
No,
That's
because
it.
I
There's no.
hate that argument though, Raiz, because it's like people say that, oh, but a new player, it doesn't matter. If you're a new player, you don't know what Path of Exile is. So if you go in and you happen to pick Glacial Hammer and you go, oh, I
Yeah.
don't like the feel of this game feels really clunky.
Okay,
If
yeah,
they've
that's a
given
great
you
point.
something else, that's why I hate that argument. And it's the same thing of like, oh, but you need to have bad so you know what's good.
It's
But
like
the
they're
first thing you
No, I
give to
agree.
the
That's a
player
great point.
is
From-
something bad.
from GGG's standpoint, it's like they're a car dealership, and they've upped their game, and they've got these really nice shiny sports cars somewhere in their dealership. But also, you have to walk past a bunch of junkers, and you might just get a bad impression as
Yeah.
a new player. So
Yeah.
they,
Oh, yeah,
they want
sure.
all of their cars to be nice.
One thing I think would be a nice solution, because you either have this thing of like, okay, so what do we do? Do we then delete old skills? One thing I think would be kind of interesting is there might be that one dude who really likes the meme that is Ellie Hit, and I'm sure Ellie Hit is a great thing. Why not take some of those old things, and like how they did with Prophecy, they have the upgrading, rather than making a Threshold Jewel, delete Ellie Hit, but then make a unique item which kind of has Ellie Hit baked into it. You know, like you then have stuff like
Doomfletch?
yeah, exactly. So you have something like that. Or like, for example, they make a new Shaper Helm that every time you cast, there's a 25% chance your character shoots out an Ice Spear. Like, you can get rid of some of these old skills because they're basically just bad, but then incorporate them back into other things as fun kind of procs or whatever, so that there's still that identity and people will look fondly at, oh, I remember that. That used to be really cool. I don't know.
I feel like one thing they could do with this is give more identity for like AoE skills and then single target skills, because like for something like Lightning, for example, Lightning really lacks a single target skill. For example, there's like
Sharpness shot.
you play a Spark build and you're like, okay, how do I actually do any single target on a Spark build? Like you literally can put Spark in a faster proj pair of gloves 5-link, and well, you're done with that. And then you have a full 6-link to put a single target skill in, but what do you put in that? Like
Stormclaw.
On-
Stormcall's
Stormclaw,
alright.
though, right?
It's alright.
Again,
really-
you
Yeah,
then have the
except-
awkward situation of you're then playing the lightning projectile skill, then the lightning AoE skill,
Yeah.
then the storm
that's
core
fun.
once the reduced
Yeah.
duration thing.
And the
Yeah,
the
and then-
duration was
Yeah.
Also, one thing I want to say, I wasn't saying earlier we need to delete every bad skill and turn it into. I was just using the example of like Ellie hit and Ice Spear. I'm not saying we must delete Earthquake because Earthquake is 2% worse than Reeve.
no. We just need to give it some AOE that isn't the size of a
Yeah.
fucking M&M.
Like,
Like-
it's not that bad, man. Shit.
Like, I mean,
I
Ellie
think-
hit. You could add like elemental like additive elemental damage. Like you put like 150 or 200% additive elemental damage on Ellie hit, and people still wouldn't use it for clear because it doesn't have, you know, the AOE explosions that Kinetic Blast has. But people might use it for single target.
I mean, there's things that are just not that bad, but they're perceived as so awful by the community, honestly. Like, Earthquake is really not that bad. It's a decent ability. It's got a decent AoE. You can clear with it well. I mean,
Yeah,
shit,
but
I'm
if-
playing Lightning Strike right now, and it's
No,
perceived as
Lightning
one of the
Strike
worst
is
things in the game.
fucking amazing.
Yeah,
Me and
you think
me
that,
and Red
but
Eye
the overall
fucking,
impression of the
me
community
and
is
Red
not
Eye
that at all.
fucking. If one of us is feeling a bit bad, we just send the other one whisper like, "Hey man, Lightning Strike," and we get all tingly. But one of the issues you have with Earthquake though is it's kind of like, I agree, it is kind of playable, but you need to remember that two hands are dog shit. If two hands were better, then Earthquake would be better by extension. And that's why I would much rather their post said, we're not reworking old skills. They said, we're reworking two-handers. We're reworking Lightning Warp, Flame Dash. If you change fucking Flame Dash or Staffs, that has so much more impact to the game than we've made some shitty old skill usable.
There are so
Probably
many
Flame
good
Dash.
staffs that I want to be able to use. There are so many good ones, like really cool ones. Like the Harbinger staff has 9 point something% base crit chance. It's ridiculous. It's I mean, it's basically Hegemonies, but slightly worse. But it's still cool. And Disintegrator is neat, and the Chaos one, Unraveling.
Also.
Sire of Shards, there's a classic. There's so many cool staffs, and every time I'm like, all right, this is the time. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna suck it up. I'm gonna play a staff build. Fuck, I can't shield charge.
It's the same thing for me. Every time I'm like, well, actually, I can play this build with a staff. It's like, no, at the end, it always ends up with the same thing. Like a staff, maybe weapon swap for single target. Fuck it, nothing else ever.
How many times have you had that thing where someone like, excuse me, Mr. Streamer, I ID'd this really interesting item, and they link you their like +3 staff with all these fancy Elder mods, and I'm like, yeah, it's a staff onesie. Not even
Yeah,
like
what
12.
about if they, for all the caster staffs, what if they just gave them all attack speed? All caster staffs now have 30% attack speed.
That doesn't solve the problem though. Like,
That doesn't-
revisit
You
Flame
just sleep
Dash.
slam, dude. It solves
No,
everything.
that doesn't solve the problem. It's like, revisit
No.
Flame Dash. Another thing that I'm a big fan of is nerfing sources of movement speed at the top end and then buffing the base up. That way the movement speed... No, Grim, fuck off. The movement speed stays exactly the same. No, it stays exactly the same. Like, I gave the example of the reduced duration on Stormcore, right? If you have the reduced duration Helm enchant and you have all the sources of less duration, Stormcore feels fine. If you have none of those, it feels bad. You can keep the numbers exactly the same, but you buff the base and bring the top down so it ends up being the same thing at the end. That way it feels better to fucking play with. For new players who first play Path of Exile feels really slow. So let's say that Grim's Windripper build is like 300% movement speed. What I would do is I would buff base movement speed by, say, 30%, and then I would nerf, I don't know, Queen and Forest by 30%. Grim's build is still 300% movement speed. Do you get what I'm saying? But the base experience feels better.
Yeah, no, I agree. Although I think that feeds into the whole skill discussion, right? If you look at the skills, right, it's two groups of people. There's people like us who are looking for a new thrill with a new skill, right? But then there's other people coming back who are the new players and stuff like that, and they have how many skills is it now? Like 80, 90 skills or something to choose from, and it's just ridiculous. Like they're gonna hit a bad one like most of the time, like Glacial Hammer or something. And I think those skills need to be removed or changed or something like that because they're a really poor representation of what the game's all about, right? It's not about one hitting mobs once at a time with Glacial Hammer and all that stuff. It's about like
Well, hitting
AoE
the whole
and it's
screen.
yeah, it's about hitting the whole screen. Exactly. But yeah, I think they need to tune up the beginner process with the skills with this patch, and then maybe add in a few new toys for us, like to play around with.
It's interesting as well. Like itemization is starting to shoulder some of the burden of that for some of the worst skills in the game. You know, Impulses has done wonders for a lot of previously considered pretty garbage skills. What else? I mean, Impulses, basically. There's a lot of other ones too, but they're not coming to mind. Herald of Ice, not really itemization, but being able to scale that. There's just more sources in the game to scale your Herald of Ice damage now, so you can rely on it a bit more for helping out your clear. Herald of Ash changes for the overkill burn, all that sort of thing.
Yeah. I think it's hilarious because, like, I think we have a very warped perspective of who plays Path of Exile. Like, I get a lot of people on my like channel and my friends. They don't even know what ascending is. Like, they don't even know they can choose an ascendancy.
Of course.
Like, that's a lot of people who are playing, and then you hand them all these skill gems. It's ridiculous. I think they need to change it. And I
But
really
again,
do
that's-
think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, continue.
I was just gonna say, like, if we all want Path of Exile to grow and all that kind of stuff, it's good for everyone, right? Like, we need to focus on the new player a little bit more, and I think they've been neglected for a long time, with leagues and everything, really.
I mean, the 10 acts was a big thing for the new player, but I still think a lot of the core fundamental problems come down to if someone's completely new to Path of Exile, what similar games have they played? Probably Diablo. Diablo's a shit game, but the first like hour of playing Diablo, it feels good. Everything feels impactful. But it's like, hey man, here's Heavy Strike, have fun. And then depending on which one of 5 skills you pick off a vendor, if you get the good one, great. If you pick Bear Trap, and then you decide that you're going to try and have your journey through Baeclast with Bear Trap and Heavy Strike, that dude's probably not getting
How
past
do you
fucking
decide
anything.
that though?
I don't know. I would say that it's not even that illogical a decision. Like in so many other games, the ability to guaranteed stun lock an opponent is absolutely busted, right?
Yeah, but who? I don't feel. But that's something you actually choose. Like, do you guys play new games like that? I feel like I never delve into one thing when I try a new game. When I try a new game, I'm the type of guy who plays Diablo 2 and puts 1 point into every ability just to fucking test it out, you know? If I'm playing I was playing Grim Dawn recently, I'll try out every single thing every
yeah,
time.
but Raiz,
it'll
you
slow down
can't
my
buy
progression.
everything at level
Yeah,
2.
exactly.
Like, this is what I would do,
How
right?
can you not?
What do you mean, how can you not? You're a new fucking player. You don't get
Yeah,
certain
you
skills
click every
till 28.
chest, you
You
blow
don't
up
get-
every barrel.
You don't get certain skills till 28, right?
Sure.
So are you saying that until 28, like, oh, don't enjoy the game? If it, like, one
What?
thing
No,
like-
you just don't play Heavy Strike.
No,
Just
but
play
if
Heavy
you're
Strike,
oh
you don't
dude,
like it,
if
play
you're a
something
new
else.
player and you start Marauder, what do? You get Heavy Strike, and then you go to
And then you
Tarke
pick up
League,
Molten Strike, and it's
and
way
he
better.
offers you what is it, like Molten Strike, Cleave, and like 3
Yeah.
other things, right?
Molten
Why
Strike.
don't you just like revisit it and kind of be like, okay, here are good like 4 AoE skills which feel good. These are like what you get at level 2, and you pick one of these 4 skills. It's like if you make a shadow, your options are like what? Fire Trap, Bear Trap, Freeze Pulse, EK, and then like Caustic Arrow. If
All
you
great
pick
feeling abilities.
What like
Caustic
what
Arrow is
happens-
terrible to level with, EK is terrible to level with.
EK is not terrible. What was the first skill you said? EK was a contender for speedrunning for the longest time for shadows. What was the first
right
skill?
now, like if you made a shadow right now, no threshold duel, EK.
It's not bad.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're a witch, you get like lightning tendrils, you pick up lightning tendrils feels
What's bad
PogChamp.
about that?
You
It's
enjoy
a
your
bad
like
feeling
1
skill?
centimeter lightning tendrils? That dude's gonna stick
well,
around?
You don't
They
do
have
a
a-
lot of damage, but it's not a bad feeling skill. It looks great right now. I don't like you're not comparing this to Volspark. You're a new player. It doesn't feel that bad. They're not bad.
You've played
skills.
other games though, like this thing, games are meant to be fun, right?
Yeah, well,
I think
It's
Here's-
like if you look at this is the example I use, right? When you look at MMO players, everyone has played WoW. The way that the standard MMO started for a very long time is you make your new character, you make your mage, you have one spell at level 1, it's fucking fireball. You then don't get a cool skill until level 20. You know that when you're playing your new MMO, that eventually your mage will be good. But the first hour and a half will play like absolute dog shit because that's how they've designed MMOs. I think that is a shit way to make video games. And that is what Path of Exile currently is.
How is it that? You do a quest, you have 4 different abilities to choose from. You go, okay, Cleave does this, Molten Strike does this, Heavy Strike does this. I like Molten Strike. You try out Molten Strike, you know what? You don't like it. You liked it on paper, but how it plays, you don't like it. What do? You don't go, well, I guess I'm just going to play Molten Strike to level 100. You go, let me go back to town, pick up Cleave, and see if it feels better. You don't do that.
Is a brand new player going to fucking do that? No.
Of course!
They're not, man. Why
You're
do
reading
people
things.
not play Path of Exile? How many of your friends that you know would enjoy Path of Exile, you try and get them to play Path of Exile, they log in, they play for 20 minutes, and go, this game plays like shit, and they stop playing. And you know if they got to maps, you would enjoy it.
Can I just interject here, just to kind of help this?
Yeah, go for it, man.
So I know this experience 100% because when I started out with my website, I wanted to get my web developer friend into PoE so he could like know what I'm talking about, because he's the one helping make the website, right? And I had to teach him, right? And he didn't know what skill gem links was. He didn't know the links or anything how they worked. He didn't even know you could buy gems off the vendor. Like you don't know these things without looking it up. Like you don't know that you can buy stuff with wisdom scrolls and stuff like that. You don't even generally go to the vendor. You try and read the quests and stuff. There's no way that you're going to know Molten Strike is the best skill. Like, no fucking way.
No, you're not supposed to know the best skill. You try out new things.
But you can't know that without like knowing there's a vendor there to buy the gems and stuff.
Yeah, some of the trying out new things is locked behind systems you might not know about. Like, when I first started playing the game, I didn't know that vendoring things gave you the currency that you needed to buy skill gems. I thought I had to go out and like find a transmutation orb to drop. So I spent an hour and a half doing that.
But that's
when
not
I
a
could
that's
have just
not a
sold some
flaw
items.
with the leveling system or the skill gems selection at the start. That's a flaw with how visible it is that you can go to a vendor and buy those skill gems that you previously could select from a quest reward.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Perhaps, yeah.
Wouldn't
I
this
think
be?
If it would just point and go, "Hey, buy skill gems here."
I mean,
that
there
would be
there
more
is
of
a
an-
tutorial system there, but like this is one question I'll just have quickly and I'll let Uber say. I'm not saying you need to delete old skills. I'm saying they could change the skills they give to try and give players what generally feel like more fun skills. And I don't understand the mentality of like people in chat like Tarke, you're trying to be relevant, you're getting too angry. What is bad about trying to improve the new player experience? We're not making anything bad. We're just like, hey, this skill feels kind of good. Let's try and give players this skill rather than Glacial Hammer. That doesn't change the way I play the game. Doesn't change the way Uber plays the game.
How
he
is
knows
Glacial
not to...
Hammer not cool? Though?
Okay, Uber, talk. You can talk now. I'm done.
Couldn't we just like improve this a little bit by because for the first few skills, because that's where you need to see it, because that's important to the new player experience. Couldn't we have like some sort of help panel where you like hover over the skill gem, and if you're like kind of new to the game, this will probably be enabled by default. You'll hover over the gem, and then you can see a preview video of how the skill looks and works.
Yeah.
Because like
that sure,
that'd be neat.
that'd be great.
like that would probably help a lot of this situation that this whole argument is about. If we had previews of how this skill looks and works, because that's part of the thing I had with Grim Dawn. I want to know, like in Grim Dawn, I want to know how these procs from devotions look like or work. I want to know how these skills look like or work.
Yeah, but this proves my point, right? You don't have that preview in PoE, but you want to try these other things. Like, you want to try them. And, like, Glacial Hammer is fucking cool, man.
But, like, if you're a new player, you don't know you can buy new gems.
Yeah,
you're looking at this gem menu and you're like, oh shit, what do I pick, dude? I might only get this one time. I have no idea.
Exactly,
You know?
and you put in the effort to actually read what you want. Therefore, you have knowledge of all the 4 gems that you can select from because you think it's such a big deal. If there is a vendor that tells you you can buy each one of these gems here, and there is, it's not indicative, like it's hard to see that it is there, but you're going to know what these abilities do. And if you don't like this one, then you're going to go and try and get the other one. The flaw is that, yeah, it's not visual enough that you can actually buy the other gems, and it does feel like a crest reward is a really big deal because you're only getting one thing.
Yeah, if it told you like, hey, you can buy these other gems later on for whatever currency, like Scrolls of Wisdom or whatever, then sure, it wouldn't be as bad to not have a preview. And then there's a whole problem of like stat requirements. So you're gonna have these people that are speccing into like strength nodes because they're like, oh, I want to try this skill out, but I don't have enough strength for it. You know?
I'm getting triggered at chat. This person literally said the gems don't describe what they do, Failfish, man. This is the people that I'm addressing. Come on.
Like again, I don't mean I don't mean to go so far. Like I didn't mean to get as angry as I did. I do apologize.
Tarke, you know what? I take everything back. If these are truly the new players of Path of Exile, people who can't read and say the gems don't describe what they do, you know what, Tarke? Absolutely. Everybody's a fucking retard, and you're absolutely right.
Thank you, Raiz.
Absolutely right.
He said the R word.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely
Raiz
right.
is in the
Just
chat.
make Hillock drop a tattoo every
I'm
time.
sorry, I didn't know PoE was played by 12-year-olds. I'm with 28.
Capital D colon, dude.
I'm sorry. Okay.
But yeah, I don't like this. Just to like bring this back to the like flame dash thing. It's just kind of like, I think that it's one of those things where I feel like games should be somewhat representative of how they actually play. And I think that staff movement definitely needs looking at. Like, we can probably all agree that staffs feel shit. Two hands, there are some good two-hand builds, but they're generally weaker than stat sticks. Elder and Shaper items have just made the dual wield meta even stronger. So hopefully in 3.3, they look at something like Flame Dash, look at something like staff movement, rather than spending, you know, all this animation time on making Cold Snap slightly better.
Yeah,
I don't think you're right about Flame Dash. Sorry. Sorry,
Oh
but,
no,
yeah.
Flame Dash. Okay, can I say one thing about Flame Dash? Why the hell does it have a shorter range than Leap Slam, but it can go farther if you can target something like a barrel or a mob? And so there was like that one instance, there was a thread on Reddit where somebody dashed over to a ledge because there was a barrel on it and they couldn't go back.
That was good. I liked that one.
Why?
Do you guys think the problem with staffs is mobility or actually staffs?
I mean, staffs currently do less damage in most cases and give you less defense and are slower.
There are some really interesting caster staffs though that don't see use because of, you know, mobility issues and that sort of thing. Like Pledge of Hands is super strong, and Cane of Unraveling is, you know, just maybe not quite best in slot for something like Blight or Essence Drain, but you could very well use it as a league starting option. You know, I was looking at that. I did Blight as my league starter this league, and I was looking at using a Cane of Unraveling for the easy +2 Chaos gems, and in the end, even though going Breath of the Council on a shield was actually lower damage, it didn't really matter because it sped me up so much that I could achieve my goals much faster anyways.
Right.
And
Fortify
is good.
What you're looking for here is teleport from D2 on the sorcery. So I know that's what we're all after, but if that in the game, then spells are just the best, right? I mean, come on, like you can't actually balance.
Body swap is interesting. Something along those lines could be neat, I guess. Maybe if corpse generation were a bit easier while holding a staff, so that body swap had more usage than just being for poet's pens, or maybe like body swap totems.
I mean, there's so many problems here. One is the fact that if you want to be able to get Fortify with a movement skill as a staff, you have to use Leap Slam or I guess Charge Dash, but no.
Can I just say briefly, Xeno is the only person I know who uses Charge Dash, and I cringe internally every time I fucking see him use it over like Shield Charge or something. But go on, continue.
There's the...
It doesn't give you mobility, that's the problem.
Yeah, because you scale how fast it is with move speed, so you may as well just walk.
Yeah. And then, like, there's a whole, like, attack speed bonus thing for dual wielding, and then there's, like, the Shaper stat sticks are what really, in my opinion, push this over the top, and I'm really surprised they didn't nerf Shaper stat sticks to only have, like, one fizz out of the Zelly roll, because, like, even with one fizz added as Ellie roll on a shaper stat stick, it's still ridiculously powerful. I'm really surprised they didn't nerf that. And then, but the fact that you can get even more of that just puts stabs even lower on the list, because how do you stat stick that? You can't. So it's a combination of the movement and the ability to get fortify, and then the stat sticks on top of it all. It's not a good situation for stabs in general.
It used to
and
be
really
that
two-handers.
It used to be that like two-handed weapons in general just had, I feel, better nodes on the skill tree, but then they like reworked the entirety of that, and now it's, I don't think any longer the case, other than like Wrecking Ball. There's not really anything that's like particularly efficient on the skill tree for these sort of weapons anymore. All dual wielding and all the attack speed and all this stuff just works out so well. I mean,
Yeah.
geez, we were talking about EQ. The best way to play Earthquake right now is dual wielding. So
Yeah.
it's like,
Like that's the exact problem, and it's literally a case that if you're playing a two-hand build, in most cases your build will do less damage, it will have less defense, and it will have less mobility. You have less defense because if you're a spellcaster, you don't have easy access to fortify. You're missing out on life rolls on a shield. You're missing out on spell crit rolls on a shield. Spell crit rolls from your main hand. You're missing out on using stuff like Eshe's Mirror. You're missing out on stuff like Lycosidae. Like, there's so much just like OP shit, and then it's like, hey, but it's okay because you can get power charge on crit as like an Elder mod. So I'm totally going to use a staff now. What were you going to say, Sir Octavian? I saw you were about to open something.
It's a pretty minor point, but one of the most tilting things for me is that the majority of staffs have about the same block chance as dual wield block chance. So they don't even like outdo it defensively in that. You know, I'd be way more inclined to use staffs if there was even just a unique option that gave you like 30% block chance or something with that specific staff. Something like that. That'd be really cool.
Can we talk about the amount of staff nodes there are in tree in comparison to all other weapon types?
It's like 2 wheels.
Can I just ask you guys a question? Let's say
there's not much to talk about.
Here.
No.
Yikes.
Go for it, Grim. Go for it.
Yeah. Let's say that they gave Stars D2 teleport from Sorceress. Let's say they gave it that. Would anyone actually play Stars here? Like, what would you do with it?
I wouldn't
Pledge
play
of
this
hands.
game if it had D2 teleport.
Okay, maybe not that good, but you know what I mean. Let's say they gave it a crazy mobility spell. Would you even?
I would want to play a Sire of Shards Cremation plus something else. I was actually
Sire of Shards, yeah.
I want to do
Sire of Shards
Stormcall Pledge
Cremation
of
is
Hands.
nuts.
I want to cover the screen with the lightning.
There are a lot of times where you pick up uniques. Sorry, we just keep interrupting each other. Like, I say, SSF, Pledge of Hands drop. I'm like, oh, sick, Pledge of Hands. And I'm like, I'm not going to fucking use this shit. And I just vended it. You know, it's like, they need to address the movement and address the damage and address the defense, in my opinion. Because, like, let's say that they made either Flame Dash have no charges or longer range or whatever, so then it becomes kind of comparable-ish to Shield Charge.
Not even close, really, in my opinion, but okay.
But let's just say that theoretically they did do that. In many cases, you'd still be way better off just using a shield and dagger because you're getting more crit, and then you're getting stat sticks, and then you're doing fizz to cold scales and stuff.
And more block.
Yeah, so it's like, you know, they need to address it on multiple
skill.
fronts.
You need a mobility skill that scales with cast speed and stuff. That's what you need, right?
Yeah, I mean, Lightning Warp is sort of meant to be that, but they were really afraid to make it good, I guess.
Yeah, for obvious reasons, as Raiz said.
Yeah. I mean, I'm fine with a fast lightning warp. I'm not fine with teleporting through walls, just so we're clear.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I reckon it should be like Blink Arrow.
I think making body swap more usable could be neat. You know, just getting Unearthed to be somehow more usable. I don't know. Maybe making it so you can body swap to your summon phantasms on kill.
I feel like in general, that was like kind of the way they wanted to, because for the longest time casters were so dominant in PoE that even the fact that you had to use like, you either had to get some sort of mobility from your whatever, or you had to use lightning warp, was just not that much of a downside compared to like how much more you gain in terms of damage in AoE compared to like something that moved around fast, right? Like an attack-based character. And that just no longer stands because casters just don't have that much of an advantage in that field anymore. And now that everything has enough damage, it's like attack speed just prevails. So in a way, it's just like an outdated balancing thing, in my opinion. It's just fallen too far behind.
Yeah,
Can I
I
just
think I
ask a
agree with that.
question?
I'll go on.
Right?
I think
Yeah,
another
I just wanted
problem.
to-
Oh, sorry, go.
No, you go, Uber. Sorry.
No, Grim, you started first. Fucking ask your question.
I wanted to ask Raiz and maybe Uber. I don't know if you were around, but like when desync was so bad that you couldn't use shield charge or leap slam because you teleport back and die. Did you think that the game was better when you couldn't use these movement skills than it is now?
Was the game better back in desync?
Yes, yes, it's talking.
There's a loaded question.
Okay, personally, I preferred the way the game was played back then. I understand that that's not better for the game, and that definitely doesn't make the game better overall.
I'm not talking about the
But-
damage and the numbers and the skills and all that kind of stuff. I'm talking
just
specifically-
mobility-wise,
Just mobility.
I mean, that's something that I've suggested to GGG many times now, and asked them questions. There was that one thing with Ziggy where you would just ask, like streamers would ask Chris questions about certain things, and one of my questions was, what about like indirect clear speed nerfs, like nerfing on-kill effects that are super powerful? This was a while back, so some of these things don't stand. But one of it was that, yeah, back in the day there was desync, therefore movement abilities in a way worked very differently, and adding something that would counterbalance that without like directly just nerfing that, would they consider something like that? Because less mobility equals less potion effects that are super powerful, right? We've got less pots. Less mobility equals less on-kill effects, which is like super snowbally too. And even Chris himself said that, yeah, movement abilities are absolutely broken. And so
And
I
that
guess
was like
really
a
long
year or two
answer,
ago.
TLDR. Mobility feels great, but it does in a way break the game. At that time I thought, yeah, too much mobility was an issue. Like it gave people too much stuff. Nowadays, I think it's everything else. Just because mobility is one of the things that feels the coolest in PoE. Just like
to kind of-
damage is the problem and everything like
Oh,
that.
you go.
So there's one thing about mobility that kills me here, because like lightning orb can be really good, but can it give you fortify? No. So why would you ever use that over shield charge? Like, really? Like maybe you managed to get lightning orb to go faster than shield charge, but why would you use it over shield charge when you can shield charge into a pack and as a result have 25% damage reduction for the next 4 seconds, and that might save you. Like, fortify is another thing that made movement skills that much better. And also another thing back when there was desync is lightning warp was also really strong because
It didn't.
if I remember correctly, it resynced you.
Yeah.
It was like an
so-
OOS, yeah.
Yeah, it was literally like an OOS, so it was like insane to have lightning warp because it was a counter to desync.
Yeah.
So
Another thing which is also kind of like worth mentioning is it's just like when it comes to slowing the game down, you don't necessarily need to slow the game down by like, oh, everything is 100% slower. Like kind of going back to the example I was using earlier where you buff the base and you bring down the top so the end result is the same. Even if if the game is harder, that slows you down. Because this is why I think the movement's becoming more of an issue with each league, is we keep getting more powerful, and then because of that, you end up in a situation where Grim is in. It's kind of like, well, if I'm completely just decimating everything with this setup, then why don't I just drop this item or drop these points to then get more movement speed? You know?
Yeah.
And then
the
it's-
problem is, like, they say these things, right? Sorry to Tarke. They say these things, right? Just to bounce off you. They're like, oh, I hate movement speed. Like, Chris is like, movement speed is too good. And then in one patch, they introduce whatever the talent is, like, you know, the one which works off the classes if you're connected to them. That gives 7% increased movement speed. They give Watcher's Eye with Grace. That's 15% movement speed. Like, what are they doing? They just make it faster. And then you add Light Poacher in as well. Like, they say they're a problem, and then they go the opposite direction.
Yeah.
I mean, if everything's broken, then nothing's broken. I think that mentality amongst them is very prevalent.
Yeah,
nowadays.
and I would agree with you, but the problem is it's kind of like they're using that argument, but instead of buffing anything else, they just keep buffing the same fucking build. It's like, okay, guys, we have some issues with mobility, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna We're gonna take EK. EK's feeling a little bit powerful. We're gonna make light poacher. Okay, guys, EK's feeling a little bit too strong here. So what we need to do is we need to make Blade feel better. We're gonna introduce all of these mods where we give physical as extra elemental damage. Okay, guys, it's feeling a little bit bad. So what we're gonna do is then gonna change the map layout. So now people are running. Oh, this keeps buffing the same fucking kind of build. So it's like I don't give a shit that like KB is amazing. KB feels fucking amazing. But then let a shitty staff build feel as good. Like, either bring everything up or bring shit down. Don't just have 1/3 of the game in the fucking stratosphere and everything else in the past. And that's why I go back to this new player experience. It's just like, did you pick this skill? If you pick this skill, Path of Exile, best game in the world. I fucking love it. Oh, you picked skill number 2? Fuck you, mate. Have a shit game.
Like,
I mean,
at least they did a good job with the uniques this league in relation to Light Poacher. Like, we don't have anything, like, other than the Feral Chest, which is really hard to get, really rare. But at least they didn't, like, have another Light Poacher, which is, like, super common and, like,
That's
super
just
ridiculous strong.
I mean, like, let's be honest. Like, Chris is like, oh, clear speed's too good. Let's release Deadeye, 20% more clear speed.
And
But I think
Tailwind.
Chris, the problem is Chris doesn't like stand behind these decisions. Chris doesn't go like slow down the game by 20% and everybody, yes sir, yes sir. He just kind of, he's kind of the poor guy. Like, come on.
Yeah, no, I agree.
But you also need to look at it from their point of view, right? It's kind of like, our game keeps getting more and more popular with every league. I know, there's Raiz and this Tarke dude who are complaining that they enjoyed the game a bit more 6 years ago. I think we should hire them and fire our current team, and they will take the game back to its glory of 6 years ago when it had 1/20th of the player base. That totally won't cause any problems.
I don't think that's necessarily true because I'm a new gen player. I guess you guys are older than me when you're playing the game, and even I see the same problems as Rise and Uber and all that stuff.
Yeah, but you play a lot probably, or you've played a lot.
Yeah, I guess so.
There is a lot more depth to the game than, people who've been playing it for leagues on end and made 50 builds will give it credit for. Like, a new player to Path of Exile can be someone who's got 300 hours logged in the game, which is not really something you can say about a lot of games, honestly. So I do think that the game has a decent amount of room for growth, and you don't hit the ceiling too quickly of your 300% movement speed build that one-shots everything on the screen instantly, unless you have already gone through those steps and you've already tread that path and you're just doing it again for the new league. So yeah, that's about it. That's the end of my point. It's 6:23 in the morning. I'm becoming less lucid. I apologize.
I mean, going for like 3.5 hours now.
Yeah,
They do
Then
have
it's time
good
to relax.
They do have really good players on their team. It's just that, like, their time is so limited. There's only so much they can test or rebalance or whatever in the amount of time they have. They would, like, need to, like, probably even double or triple that and to really, like, get the full amount of testing that I guess a lot of people want. And I mean, like, they've got people that used to be like good racers. Like, Lionel was absolutely destroying us at the start of Harbinger League, and everybody's like, oh, but he had access to the content. Well, yeah, he still did it with an Essence Drain build, and that's not really like a top meta like race build, and he was destroying us still, even though he knew the content. It was like
They've
even
definitely got good people on the team. Like Neon's always like the example which kind of comes up. Like,
oh yeah,
yeah, like there is the 1K hour meme, and I know I do play into it myself, but there's also like it's very hard to kind of. They have my sympathy in a lot of ways because it's kind of like they might be like, yeah, we're gonna fix this, but we're fixing this in 3.4 or 3.3.
No, but it's like the problem is it's impossible. Like as a mostly SSF player, like I'm fucking so clueless about many things that are super apparent to people who just play Trade League. Like without its own ecosystem, GGG will always remain like notorious in just for their bad testing. It will just always be the same thing unless they actually like create an environment where the testers can like truly test things. Because if you can't trade, if you can't play with other people, if you're just this one guy, it makes you so shut in. Like for me, that's super apparent. Like whenever I switch from SSF to the Trade League, it's just I learned so fucking much of new stuff that I really don't envy their testers. Even if they have enough of them, without this ecosystem, it's just impossible to test, in my opinion. So this
Yeah.
will always be the case unless they get more people, or alpha becomes more popular, or they run betas, in which case when they did run the betas, overall the releases were quite a bit better outside of the league problems, right?
Outside of 2.0.
I think a really interesting point about the alpha is it's kind of like, so you have this awkward situation. So let's say they get, okay, so the way we'll fix this problem is we'll let like all the top streamers and racers, we'll let them test everything a month before, so Beastry launch is super polished. If you do that, you kill loads of the hype. So then you say, okay, well then what we'll do is we'll have it under NDA. Well, if it's under NDA, Raiz isn't fucking streaming that shit, because then he can't test that league, because if he does that, he then has to take a month off streaming, right? So if you say, oh, we'll take all the top racers and we'll take all the top streamers, we'll give you access to this content, but you can't leak any of the content, which therefore means you need to stop producing content for a month. Well, that's going to be really good for the game's longevity. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to get the professional racers who aren't streamers or known in the community. You can test our content and you cannot talk to any of the other people you might potentially influence. It's like, okay, so then
And you have to quit your job and do this full time.
yeah.
And then, by the way, you're done after 3 weeks, so get the fuck out.
Yeah, and by the way, that's also just gonna make the pro racers just have more of an advantage too.
Exactly. But it's like, one thing I will say is it's like, I know I've like been shitting quite a lot this podcast, but I am generally very happy with how Path of Exile currently is. I'm happy with the current state of the game. I just wish that old stuff was brought back so I could feel good about playing certain things. But saying that, Mr. SSF Trap Player, by the way, in the most recent build of the week, and I'm not saying you have me to thank, but you have me to thank, the trap nodes have moved into what looks like a more desirable situation. So maybe traps won't be shit this time next month. So I think the real fix is all the content creators need to stop playing good builds. But if we only make content on the worst possible builds, they have to make them better. Otherwise, the Twitch section makes Path of Exile look like a bad game.
Don't worry, Tarke. I'm already playing Shield Throw.
As fix. But imagine that, right? Like, if you went to see, like, oh, you're a new player, I wanted to check out this Path of Exile about, and every single Twitch streamer was using, like, One Link Heavy Strike and Lightning Warp for movement options, and you're like, wow, this game looks really old. They'd have to fucking make it better, right? We need to make like a pact, make like a fucking doctrine. We all agree we're all gonna put away our 6 links and we will all be on a 2 link from now until they buff movement.
Oh god.
Fucking glowy brain shit right there.
Together we can enact change.
For sure.
Or Chris, I promise I will kill this rebellion if you give me a fucking Tinker skin. Give me a Tinker skin and I will stop this rebellion.
Are you chancing them?
I've been collecting every single Sadist Garb that's dropped. I've got stash tabs full of them. And even if I get the Impulsor, I'm happy. I don't know, I haven't counted how many I've chanced, but it's probably less than 1,000. It's probably between like 300 to 600 probably, to be like realistic on the amount of
the
chance.
ultimate SSF chancing test. Are you buying chance orbs with your fusings?
No, although I have
Then
been
you don't
tempted.
deserve a Tinker skin. There you go.
Although, to be fair, if I
Done.
was doing that Raiz, I wouldn't have enough Sadist Garbs, because I literally run out of Sadist Garbs. And because I can't buy Sadist Garbs off the vendor for fusings, that would kind of be irrelevant, you know?
Are you checking the vendor every time to see if they're selling Sadist Garbs?
That can only spawn in like...
Go away.
That can only spawn in like
Inefficient
Act
play,
10, Act
Tarke.
9.
Yeah.
And they cost like a chaos or something from Act 10, Act 9 because it's a top base.
Oh,
I'm
dang.
pretty sure.
How good would it be, though, is if after this rant, like, they got a hotfix and there was a new, like, beast recipe, which was create a Sadist Garb? I would be fucking down. Let's go. Sadist Garb
Just a
beast
white
Garbs.
one. Just white Sadist.
Yes.
Oh, one of the high level 6-linked ones?
No, we don't need that 16. Literally just like one, we make a new recipe which makes one Chancellor, another which makes one Sadist Garb. Let's go.
Yeah, and then here's the catch that they're gonna put in. You can't chance it in a Tinker skin, only Impulses.
Dude, Impulse's
That's
so
what-
cool. I'm down. Like, I'm down. I watch math
Unless
videos.
your name isn't Tarke.
I know how Impulse works. I'm okay with it.
It doesn't work with traps though.
Yeah, that does make me a little sad. It does make me a little sad.
Right, great podcast, everybody.
Yeah, that
Tarke.
was a fun time. I think I did a pretty good job because at the start I was like, I'll keep to myself, I'll let them sort of do their own thing, let them talk about mapping, and then I'm just gonna read loudly for about 30 to 40 minutes towards the end. There, let's just start then. But does anyone have any
maybe let the maybe let the guests plug their shit. You know,
I
that's
was in
just-
the middle of actually doing that, Raiz. Thanks for that, mate.
Sorry.
So now it's awkward. So does anyone?
It's always
maybe...
awkward with you, Tarke.
Fucking Raiz, man. So Grimro, where can people find you?
Oh yeah, just YouTube. That's basically it. Yeah, it's pretty good stuff.
You don't have like a website or anything that people would maybe want to know about?
Yeah, I'm not ready to throw that public just yet. I think it's there if you want it, but otherwise, yeah, just let us work on it a little bit more, and we'll.
Building
make it
anticipation. It's a smart move.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's kind of getting there, but we've got a lot more work to do. We want to put a lot of stuff into it, so yeah. Put a loot filter up today, so you guys can download that if you want.
And if they wanted to download that, where would they download that?
PoEwizard.com. There you go. That's what you wanted, Tarke.
It's a good
See,
name.
Raiz, isn't this way less awkward now? Octavian, what about you?
I stream twitch.tv/Octavian0. It's the number, not the word. And I'm on YouTube under Octavian as well.
What about you, Tarke? Where can we find you, buddy?
You can find
Nice.
me on twitch.tv/TarkeCat. You can also soon find me at ggg/TarkeCat when I'm hired to fix traps professionally. It's going to be some good shit. But Uber, would you want to plug your stuff before I cringe at Raiz?
Did they
you can
crash
find
the
me at-
website? Sorry.
Did they crash it?
You can find me at Twitch TV, the Uber Elite, and pretty much everything else related to that is in the description below my Twitch. So there you go.
And Raiz,
Awkward
where
silence.
should Raiz, where should people spend their Twitch Prime?
Definitely on TarkeCat. You can definitely go for that. You can find me. You can find YouTube under XX Soulraiser XX, and yeah, I stream on Twitch sometimes too. The link should be there. Thanks, guys.
All right. Well, I'd like to thank everyone for turning up, and sorry for the little internal cringing. So yeah, you can now wave, and then I'll press end call at some point when you all stop waving. Raiz, wave, you bitch.
I got you at Twitch Prime. Shut up. Bye, everybody. I'm waving with my penis, dude. You just don't see it. See you later.
All right, I'm dropping the call now. Bye.
Bye.